Sports. Sactown Sports.
Headlines.
He's back. That's right. Steph Curry is set to return for the Warriors tonight against the Suns in San Francisco. Curry, who had missed the last 11 games with a shoulder injury, is set to start for the Dubs. Shuffling over to the MLB, the Carlos Correa saga has come to an end allegedly. Correa won't sign with the Giants or the Mets, but rather with the Twins. The deal is reportedly worth $200 million over 6 years for Correa to return back to Minnesota. Handing off to the NFL, the Baltimore Ravens agreed with their star linebacker Roquan Smith on a long-term deal today. According to the NFL Network, Smith agreed to a 5-year, $100 million extension. $45 million of that is fully guaranteed, and the deal includes $60 million in total guarantees. The deal makes Smith the highest paid inside linebacker in the league. Hey, I'm sorry, Ramie. Also, someone who will be looking to cash in next year in the NFL is Georgia defensive tackle Jalen Carter. Fresh off a back-to-back championship run, Carter declared for the NFL today. Some believe he could be the number one pick in this year's upcoming draft. Those are your Sac Sports 1140 headlines. I'm Jay Johnson. It's 3 p.m., which means it's time for the Cattles and Ramie Show. Coming up next.
Not the boring, generic milquetoast stuff coming from the network in Connecticut.
I describe him as the best, obviously.
Cattles.
He throws it out there. He speaks his mind. That's cool.
And Ramie.
He's supposed to make people laugh. He's just an expert at it.
Cattles and Ramie.
Live and local in the afternoon.
Sactown Sports.
What's happening? A good Tuesday to you and yours. Thanks for joining us as always. It is much appreciated. What's up, Rom?
How's it going?
It's going okay aside from the nonstop monsoon we're having to go through here.
Yeah, I know, man.
Welcome to Sacramento, Ramie. How's your first December/January going?
People lied to me about the weather around here, man. People just straight up lied to me about the weather around here.
My goodness. Hopefully everybody out there is good.
Are you
safe.
good? Everybody have power?
I've got power.
We're live, JJ. Everybody's got power.
Yes,
everybody's above water. All right,
we're good so far.
Good.
But apparently this is not going to stop. I don't know about the winds.
I saw.
Are the winds going to stop? I know the rain's going to continue.
I saw that the winds were supposed to persist through Wednesday. Was the last that I saw. Rain in the forecast 7 out of the next 8 days.
And why does the worst happen at like 3 a.m. when you're trying to sleep? Anyway, I digress. Hopefully everybody out there is
when
doing
your dog
well.
is trying to sleep.
When my dog is
because if the dog is up, you're probably up.
I'm historically a very light sleeper, so as soon as that rain starts smacking against the window, it doesn't help me sleep throughout the night. But enough of my problems. Hopefully everybody out there is good. You know what is good though? At least we had a Kings win last night. Going into last night's game, Ramie, I just felt like there was some pressure, right? We were talking about the last 8 home games, 3-5 against, a lot of those losses against teams that were below 500, not taking care of games that you need to take care of, et cetera, et cetera. And we had that 9-game stretch. We went back and said, hey, your next 9 games against teams below 500, 6 of those games are at home. This is when you take care of business. And we felt like going into last night, the Kings had not taken care of business. Well, last night they did. And I have to believe I'm not the only one to feel like I could breathe last night, exhale a little bit watching that game.
Yeah, it was about time that, not that they got a win. I mean, it hasn't been that long since they got a win,
right? But
just an easy win.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Where you didn't have to sit on the edge of your couch for the last 20, 30 minutes of the game wondering if they were going to pull this thing out and watching De'Aaron Fox have to do miraculous things and Domas put up, 2020s to get you a victory. Like it was a nice eat. They took control about midway through the first quarter and never really looked back outside of a couple of magic runs. But I don't think they ever got closer than 11 after the Kings jumped out to a big lead in the first quarter.
Yeah, the Kings cruised. And we talk about, don't play with your food, right? And I love to say, don't play with your food, clean the plate. And the Kings cleaned the plate last night. And I really thought the biggest moment of this game was in the third quarter. Good teams, they can respond, Ramie. And good teams respond when they're going through some things. And it's rather obvious the Kings lately have been going through some things. The defensive regression, you had the Domas thumb injury. The bench has not been consistent for you. And so you're going through some stuff. And good teams are able to respond, not only in totality of the game, but in big moments. And in the Magic, you mentioned it. The closest they got were like 10, 11 points in the third quarter, and that was after a 12-2 Magic run. So the Magic go on a 12-2 run. It certainly seemed like, and I know Katie said this on the broadcast, it seemed like the Kings came out of the locker room at halftime feeling like they had this one in the bag.
Mm-hmm.
And NBA teams do that. Bad NBA teams do it. Good NBA teams do it. The best NBA teams do it. They go out there in the third quarter and they're like, we got this one. We're not worried about it, right? This one's locked in. It felt like at the beginning, the first 5 or 6 minutes of that third quarter, there was some of that from the Kings. 12-2 run. Magic climbing back into it. Mike Brown calls a timeout. After that timeout, the Kings respond. They respond by closing out the third quarter on a 21-9 run. That was the game. That was it. 12-2 run by the Magic. They started to feel themselves a little bit. Coach Brown calls a timeout. You have a 21-9 run in response. The Magic were dead. That was it. Going into the fourth quarter, they knew they had no chance. I knew they had no chance. We all knew they had no chance. That game was over. Here was Coach Brown last night in the postgame.
It was beautiful to watch offensively. Guys were hitting that paint and getting spray threes for one another, and the ball was moving and all that good stuff. But I'm just excited about what our guys did protecting that paint tonight, especially after watching film and drilling it and talking about it the last 3-4 days.
And Matt Barnes said at halftime, Nick, to your point, that he said when they had a 20-point lead, he said, don't let the foot up off the throat.
Yep.
Build on that 20-point lead. Don't let Orlando get any hope. And for a minute there in that 12-2 run, you were like, oh man, they're not going to do what Matt Barnes said. Actually, they're going to do the opposite and let Orlando get back in this thing.
Right.
But they finished that quarter with a 23-point lead. So they actually did build on the lead and then went from there. They were up by, I think, almost 30 by the time all the starters are pulled out of the game in the fourth quarter. But that 12-2 run, it was stopped by the timeout by Mike Brown for sure. But another thing that's the thing that stopped that run and started the Kings run that flipped that quarter was a Keegan Murray 3-pointer. And I keep talking about this with him, and I feel like the more and more comfortable and the more confident he gets, the more and more we see him with big shots, momentum shots at spots in the game that are either daggers to the other team or it's something that halts their momentum when he gets the ball in his hands. And that's not something you can say about a lot of rookies, man. He had a really good night, and I think he was 5 of 6. I have the box score right in front of me here. He was 5 of 6 from 3 last night, but I don't know if there was a bigger one than that just to stop what Orlando had going there and turn things back the other way.
He also made another play. I think it was around the same time when he drives to the paint, he gets a pass, and right away he knows that he's got a teammate in the corner. And he catches it, and in one movement, catches it and shoots it out to the corner for a wide open 3. And so, it's those kinds of plays, man. It's those waves of emotion. And it really felt like that 12-2 run by the Magic was the last gasp, right? Mm-hmm. They knew it. They felt it. They were going to make a charge. They were going to make a run. Runs happen in the NBA all the time, especially nowadays. The Magic made their run.
When they made that run, were you thinking like, oh, man, the Kings are going to make it harder on themselves than they need to? Because I kind of did because of what we talked about yesterday and how they have made life harder than it needs to be against some of these teams that they should be making light work of.
No, because I thought they approached the game right. And I think Coach Brown talked about it last night. When you play Orlando, I mentioned yesterday on the show, that team can't shoot very well. And so I thought the fact that the Kings were leading in points in the paint and they were forcing the Magic all night long to take threes. The Magic took 44 threes. That is a ton of threes for a team that is not necessarily good at shooting from distance. And I thought the defensive plan was working. They were not giving up layups and dunks. It was not easy peasy for the Magic offense. And you finished the night being +4 in the paint, as Brown mentioned. Here was more from the coach.
That was great to see. Now, and we can even be better than what we were tonight. But I tell you what, our guys, Orlando scored 78 points in the paint the first time we played them. Obviously, our last 3 opponents have had a field day in the paint. And watching our guys do their work early and talk and cover for one another on most possessions, it was beautiful to see. beautiful to see.
Another reason why I wasn't too worried was I just thought the ball movement was excellent last night. The fact that you had 39 assists, that is a crazy number. 39 assists in an NBA game. And it's not just, they were knocking shots down. I take notes during the games. And one of the first notes that I took last night, yeah, fine. Call me a nerd if you'd like. I accept it. I embrace it. I embrace my nerdom. One of the first notes that I took in this game, though, was I love the threes that the Kings are getting. I loved the looks. Threes, there are different kinds of threes. There are bad threes, there are good threes, there are great threes. And I thought the Kings were getting a lot of great threes last night in their looks. And it was because of the ball movement. It was consistently touching the paint with the basketball and then spraying it out. It was swinging east to west. And that's what you need to do. And I just thought really last night, for the first time in a little bit, it felt like the Kings were just making the right play.
Yep.
They were making the right play. Nobody was really forcing too much. Yeah, you had a stretch of a couple minutes here and there. That happens in an NBA game. But for the majority of last night's game, I just thought the Kings played a very smart game. And I tweeted out at halftime that was a very high IQ first half from the Kings. And it kind of continued after that rut to begin the third quarter. Just high IQ, man, moving the ball, making the right pass, finding the open man, simple stuff, cliche stuff. But they did it consistently last night, so I was never really worried.
Let me ask you this, and there's a level of just devil's advocate here, but
sure.
Part of me believes this to a degree. Just a bad team that they were going against last night, though. Like, how much stock do we want to put in how good they looked, how well the ball moved, how great the offense looked, the points in the paint? How much stock do we want to put in that against this Orlando Magic?
Look, it's a fair question, but when you lose by 30 to Washington and you lose to some of the teams they've lost to at home during the last 8 home games, I think walking out there and winning convincingly is a good sign because you were struggling against some of the bad teams.
Mm-hmm.
So you go out there against a bad team last night. And again, Orlando, they're a bad team overall when you look at record. And
they got some talent,
but if you allow them to play their kind of game, they're really tough. They're really, really tough if you allow them to play their game. And I thought the Kings did not allow that to happen last night. Your thoughts on last night's win? I thought it was a much needed win, kind of a breath of fresh air. You could exhale. You could really kind of feel relieved last night watching that game, which is not a feeling, as Ramie has said, that we have felt much recently because of all these close games and tight games. 916-339-1140 is the text line. The phone number is 1-800-920-1140. Open phone lines for you again, 1-800-920-1140. And don't forget, you can visit us, youtube.com, Sactown Sports 1140. We'll get to your reaction on the Kings win last night. Also, Coach Brown told us last night was critical without actually telling us. I'll tell you how in 90 seconds.
The only place you'll find Harrison Barnes. Your afternoon home for Kings talk and more.
This is Cattles and Ramie
on Sactown Sports.
It is 3:14 on this Tuesday. Time check brought to you by West Coast Men's Health Acoustic Wave Therapy. Coach Brown told us last night how important he thought the game was without actually telling us. I'll tell you how in just a couple of minutes. But first, I wanted to get to some of this reaction, Ramie, on YouTube. Again, don't forget, youtube.com, Sactown Sports 1140. Like us, thumbs up. Very little effort from you. Helps us an awful lot. If you're watching, if you enjoy the content, give us that thumbs up, and we very much appreciate it. Looking at some of the reaction here, Enrique brings up Metu, bringing the energy from the bench, something Holmes has not brought. We'll get to Metu in depth a little bit later on in the show, but I did think Metu gave them some really good minutes last night.
That was huge. The bench as a whole was huge last night, Nick, and we've been pointing out how that has become one of the trends. It wasn't early in the season, but it's become one of the things you could consistently point to in losses, was that the bench was getting smoked by opposing teams' benches, and you were asking the starting lineup to carry too much. I think they had 54 points off the bench yesterday, and Metu was huge with some of the stuff he was doing in the paint.
I wonder how much of that was the Magic's lack of athleticism up front.
Mm-hmm.
Look, Banchero's a pretty good athlete, right? But both Wagner's not very good athletes. And it's relatively speaking. We're talking about NBA athletes, okay?
Right?
I mean, they would obviously toast me. But
I don't know. I think you could cook them.
You
Nick.
think I could cook them a little bit? Get up and down the court,
a little between the legs,
beat them hooves down the floor. But both Wagner's not necessarily extremely athletic. Bol was not playing last night, and Bol absolutely killed the Kings the first time they played Orlando. So Bol was out last night. So you had the athletic edge with Metu down low. Wendell Carter Jr., who's a guy I like a lot. I loved him in college. I like his game a lot, but he also is not like a supremely athletic guy. So I wonder if Coach Brown saw that and said, we can use Metu's athleticism against that bigger team and that longer team because he can beat him to the spot. And also Orlando's defense is just trash. I mean, Metu literally could just hang around in the paint and just wait.
Nobody
for two
had
passes
anything to
and he'd
say
get
about
done.
it. Nobody had anything to say about it.
It's just, it's unbelievable. Javier says Orlando is a sneaky team, especially with their size. I agree. Again, I said this yesterday, and I know it ended up being a cakewalk for all intents and purposes. But Orlando's a team where if you don't go out there and play the right way, they can beat you. They do have a lot of length. They have size. They have the ability. They have several guys that can handle the basketball and move the ball. They'll get out in transition. They're not an easy team to beat if you don't play the right way. And I thought that's why the Kings played the right way last night. And they made the right play at the right time over and over and over again. And they forced Orlando to deal with what they're not great dealing with. And what I mean by that is the Kings offensively, look, when you play against Orlando, a team like that, you've got to make them, Ramie, make multiple efforts. You've got to force them to make multiple efforts on defense. And you keep zipping the ball around, somebody's going to be wide open, whether it's underneath, whether it's from three. And you saw that. You saw it over and over and over again. Ball movement, man movement. Orlando is just not going to make those multiple efforts.
You said it in the first segment. It was a high basketball IQ half for the Kings, and I don't think Orlando could keep up with not just the speed that the ball was moving with, but the speed that the offense was moving with, if that makes any sense.
And defensively, I thought the Kings, I mentioned this in the first segment, but to drill down on it, you want to force Orlando to take a lot of shots from distance. You want to make them a jump shooting team. And that's what the Kings did last night. Orlando doesn't want to take, I can't imagine. They don't want to walk into a game and take 44 threes. It's just not really how they're built. They're not a very good shooting team. And Terrence Ross didn't have it going. So, I thought the Kings did a very good job of attacking the weaknesses of that Magic team on both ends of the floor. Text line 916-339-1140 to live or die by the three-pointer. I'm just not a fan. It's great when it goes down, but when you miss, you're going to lose. I've got to send a message to the texter. Get ready for it and get used to it.
Exactly.
Because Coach Triano told us at the beginning of this year they want to take 43s a game.
That ain't changing.
No.
That ain't and you know what, man? I get it, but that's most of the NBA. And the refrain of I don't like living and dying by the three, it's kind of going the way of I want small ball in baseball, or you have to establish the run game in football. You know what I mean? These are things that are almost relics of the way that the game used to be played.
Yep.
A lot of teams and a lot of really good teams that win championships, the Bucks, the Warriors, they live and die by the three. And both those teams, you've seen playoff runs. Nick, you watched it last year when the Bucks and Celtics played. The Bucks went absolutely ice cold in that last game from three, while the Celtics were shooting on fire from the 3-point line last year. That's becoming this league, man. And so if you don't like living and dying by the three, I think you just don't like the brand of basketball that's being played in the NBA more than you don't like your Kings playing it, what it means for their chances of winning.
Yeah. Nick, Cattles, Ramie Makaloff, Cattles and Ramie here, Sactown Sports. You know, I was talking about at the beginning of this show that it felt like, I don't know if I'd say big win, but it did feel like a much needed win given the circumstances of what's been going on. And it sounded like the guys in the locker room felt that way too. Last night, here was Kevin Herter in the postgame.
It is. It's big. It's big. These nights you need these. Sometimes it's every single game for us has been close and just grinding things out. And it's sometimes good. Obviously, you get a feel-good one like this at home. It's sometimes you need it.
Now, I teased that Coach Brown felt like this game was important. And I think he showed us that. He told us that without actually telling us that. And why I say that is because of how he used his timeouts last night. Last night was kind of reverting back to the beginning of the year, where as soon as something went wrong, Coach Brown was calling a timeout. We had the return of the quick TOs last night. Now, we've had them in spots here and there, but last night it was consistent. It was early. It was through the middle of the game. It was towards, the third quarter timeout when the Magic went on the 12-2 run. The quick timeouts, man, where, one defensive possession, something went wrong, boom, I'm calling a timeout, right? We saw the return of the quick timeout. And I think that was the coach setting the urgency last night in that game. Like, all right, guys, we're getting close to the midway point of the season. And beginning of the year, we're going through stuff. We're learning stuff. I'm going to take the quick timeouts to, work with you and teach you. And then I'm going to give you some rope. I'm going to give you some rope and see how much you can figure out. I'm only going to use a quick timeout if I feel like it's absolutely necessary. And then you had that lull that we've been talking about, that lull of play. And last night it was like Coach Brown went right back to the beginning of the season saying, when you guys mess up, I'm calling a TO, I'm getting you together, and I'm telling you what you just did wrong.
Yep. And I think that was Mike Brown recognizing what you and I talked about yesterday, Nick, which is that the Kings are wasting an opportunity here. And they're kind of, I don't know if you want to call it complacency. I don't know what you want to call it. But there was something that was missing with this team in this stretch where they'd lost 4 of 5 and 3 of those against teams that they had no business losing against. I think Mike Brown sensed that and realized that a wake-up call was needed.
Yeah.
And I think those quick timeouts and whatever he was saying in those timeouts is exactly what that was a wake-up call of, hey guys, we got to do little things right, or you're going to hear about it. Like we're not, like I said yesterday, they're not good enough to get away with lapses. They're just not. They don't have that margin of error. And I think that was Mike Brown letting them know that.
It's the attention to detail that we always hear about Coach Brown, right? And it's just fine-tuning some things and making sure that you're focused on the right stuff. And even better, look, you can call quick timeouts. If they don't work, it doesn't matter.
Right.
But even better was like last night, Coach Brown was calling quick timeouts, and the team responded pretty much every single time he called the timeout, including that huge third quarter timeout he took. We mentioned this, Magic going a 12-2 run, that timeout from Coach Brown. After that TO, the Kings go on a 21-9 closeout of the third quarter, and they actually build upon their halftime lead. That's a team responding to the coach, listening to the coach.
And I think the other thing that showed you he was feeling that urgency was how early in the game he went to his bench and deep into his bench and saying, hey, if this, and as bad as the bench has been, Nick, and we've been talking about that, he said, hey, if the starters aren't going to get it done, and he went to Mitchell, Monk, Lyles, Okpala, they all contributed in that second quarter that helped him open up that 10-point lead where they didn't look back after that. He was definitely trying to send a message with the way he coached that game last night.
916-339-1140 is the text line. The phone number is wide open for you, 1-800-920-1140. I remind all of you, all guests come to you from the Folsom Lake Honda Hotline. Folsom Lake Honda, your one-stop Honda shop. We'll continue with your Kings reaction. Also, could a former 49er QB1 become a future Raider QB1. The latest next.
Cattles and Ramie. Cattles and Ramie.
Sactown Sports.
Matt Coker here from
tonight against the Suns in San Francisco. Curry, who had missed the last 11 games with a shoulder injury, is set to start for the Dubs. Shuffling over to the MLB, the Carlos Correa saga has come to an end allegedly. Correa won't sign with the Giants or the Mets, but rather with the Twins. The deal is reportedly worth $200 million over 6 years for Correa to return back to Minnesota. Handing off to the NFL, the Baltimore Ravens agreed with their star linebacker Roquan Smith on a long-term deal today. According to the NFL Network, Smith agreed to a 5-year, $100 million extension. $45 million of that is fully guaranteed, and the deal includes $60 million in total guarantees. The deal makes Smith the highest-paid inside linebacker in the league. Also, someone who will be looking to cash in next year in the NFL is Georgia defensive tackle Jalen Carter. Fresh off a back-to-back championship run, Carter declared for the NFL today. Some believe he could be the number one pick in this year's upcoming draft. Those are your Sac Sports 1140 headlines. I'm Jay Johnson. Coming up, the fellas tell you why Jimmy Garoppolo could be on the move.
With you 1 mile at a time during the afternoon drive. Cattles and Ramie.
Sactown Sports.
Some interesting quarterback news locally. We'll get to that in a couple minutes. But I have this text, Ramie, I wanted to throw at you here. 916-339-1140. By the way, it is 3:31. That time check brought to you by West Coast Men's Health Acoustic Wave Therapy.
Vote Kings.
Is Keegan Murray?
Well, I figured I'll do that once an hour because you got everything else on your plate.
I'm going to try to stay away from the whole voting thing. I feel like Carmichael Dave will be calling us. He'll be all upset.
We can't encourage people to vote? Like, I know we're not allowed to tell people that they should have voted, but we can't encourage people to vote in the future? We're not allowed to do that?
All I know is
Vote Kings.
All I know is Mark Jones was pushing it pretty hard last night.
Vote Kings.
I thought it was weird. You're telling me that the fans affect the fan vote. I was shocked by that. Anyway, here's a text from 916-339-1140. How dare you say anything? Is Keegan Murray just going to be a three-point shooter? Can't he drive to the basket at all? Because if he's just a three-point shooter, we drafted him way too high. Ramie, your thoughts? Keegan, only a three-point shooter? What's going on?
I don't think he's only a three-point shooter. But again, are people not watching the NBA? Do they not know what this league is today? It's a three-point league, man. And so Keegan Murray being a very good three-point shooter is only a good thing. That's not a bad thing, but I don't think he's just a three-point shooter. That might be the strongest part of his game that we've seen to this point. That might be where he feels the most comfortable, but I think there are other things he can do, and you'll see him grow in other areas of his game as well. But it's only a good thing that he can shoot the three. That's not a bad thing. And that the Kings shoot the three at a high level. That's a good thing, folks. Don't get yourself too concerned about this.
I feel like you wanted to say something else.
Yeah,
you
did.
You bit your tongue.
I did.
I know you will. So, look, I think he showed some of that. Like when he was going through the struggles, right? And he could not throw it into the water, right? He could not shoot the ball into the ocean. I mean, it was absolutely brutal there for a stretch for him. I thought he showed some of that versatility to his offensive game. I thought he did post up from time to time. Not a ton. I'm not telling you he did it a lot. But he posted up from time to time when he saw the mismatch. We've seen him cut several times, backdoor to the bucket, so he's been able to do that. But what I would say to the texter is Keegan is not a great creator. And it goes back to draft time when we talked about him as a prospect, Ramie, and that's one of the things I mentioned multiple times before they drafted him. He is not an ISO shot creator. He's not that kind of guy. He's not Paolo Banchero. He's not Jaden Ivey. He's not one of those dudes who says, everybody just give me space, I'm going to get a bucket.
Mm-hmm.
You might see him take somebody to the basket from time to time if he has a good matchup. Again, you'll see him post up if he's got a mismatch size-wise down in the paint. But he's not a shot creator just yet. Can he get there? Hopefully. But what he's going to do, and this is what we talked about when he was drafted, he's going to come off of screens. He's going to get the DHOs. He's going to be sitting in the corner waiting for shots. He's not the first option. He's not the second option. Most nights, he's not even the third option, right? He's battling for looks.
Mm-hmm.
And so his role right now is, hey, man, curl off of a screen. Here's a DHO for you. Stay outside at the perimeter and wait until a teammate can get into the paint and spray it out to you for those open threes. Every once in a while, cut to the basket when Domantas has the ball. That's what he's being asked to do. So
I think that part of his game will grow, though. His ability to create his own shot, I think that part of his game will grow.
Hopefully. I hope so. It certainly could. It certainly could. All right. Cattles and Ramie, Sactown Sports. We'll get back to the Kings in a little bit, but I wanted to switch gears to football. Jarrett Stidham, I thought, fell back to earth a little bit against the Chiefs after he looked incredible against the Niners the week before. And the Raiders have a quarterback search, right? They got a QB1 search on their hands, trying to figure out who's going to be that guy. We talked about Tom Brady last week. Ross Tucker brought up Brady, right? Mm-hmm. Others have brought up Brady as an option for the Raiders. Burt Breer was on the Dan Patrick Show late last week, and here's what he had to say about a possible Jimmy G to Raiders scenario.
When they signed Derek Carr to that contract, the idea was this is going to be Alex Smith in Kansas City. This is going to be a guy we can compete with for the next 3, 4, 5 years, and he's going to give us flexibility to go and find the next guy, which is what Alex Smith did for the Chiefs and Andy Reid. I think Jimmy Garoppolo can be that guy. So what you're talking about, like Jimmy Garoppolo fits into that, right? Like, so Jimmy Garoppolo could be that guy for them.
Jimmy Garoppolo could be that guy.
You're really going to go from Derek Carr to Jimmy Garoppolo? That's your answer at the quarterback position for if you're the Las Vegas Raiders. You're going from Derek Carr to Jimmy Garoppolo. And Nick, you know I'm a Jimmy G guy. I was the guy who, before anyone was considering it, was saying the 49ers should have Jimmy Garoppolo in the fold and backing up Trey Lance just in case something happens, which it ended up happening. I like Jimmy G, man, but if you're moving on from Derek Carr, it better be for an upgrade because it continues to sound like the Raiders are trying to sell this thing to fans now, even though it's not what it was sold as last offseason. They're trying to sell it to Raiders fans now as like this is a long-term build and a thing that we're building toward. No, man, you went out and got Davante Adams this year. Right. You went out and you were very much in win now mode.
Yeah, you signed Chandler Jones, you dealt Ngakoue for Rock Ya-Sin.
And now all of a sudden you're going the Alex Smith Chiefs route where you draft a raw young quarterback prospect and bring in Jimmy Garoppolo. If that's the plan, man, it just confirms what I've been saying and what I said when they benched Derek Carr, which is that Derek Carr ain't the problem. And I don't even know if Josh McDaniels is the problem. It might go higher than that to Ziegler and Jones and just incompetence from the very top of this organization. You better upgrade. If I'm a Raiders fan, I wouldn't accept anything short of an upgrade. And if I'm Davante Adams, get me out of here. If your plan is to hand things over to Jimmy Garoppolo till a special quarterback is hopefully ready, get me out of here and let me go somewhere I can win.
It's the biggest question. The biggest question is whether or not he would be an upgrade over Carr. And I see them as similar quarterbacks. I think Carr has a higher ceiling than Garoppolo does.
Yeah.
But Garoppolo is probably, I would say, is the better decision maker. And maybe that's what it comes down to with McDaniels is maybe he just got tired of some of the Carr decisions he made, and he feels like he could trust Garoppolo more. Garoppolo, though, I'm not saying he's an incredible decision maker. I think Garoppolo's decisions were absolutely helped by Kyle Shanahan's coaching and play calling and the whole, make one read and get rid of it most of the time. It's a fit. It's a fit because you have the obvious link to the New England days, and Garoppolo knows the system, and McDaniels loves to run the football, which fits the Jimmy G profile with what he did with the Niners. But man, I mean, the injury history, how much money would he cost? And I don't think he's an absolute upgrade over who you just had. So I agree with you. I said when the Carr thing happened, I have no issue with the Raiders moving on from Carr, but once you do that, you better get a definite upgrade.
And if you're looking at the Kyle Shanahan 49ers model of just have somebody who won't lose you games and surround them with a bunch of playmakers, because maybe Josh McDaniels is looking at it and going, hey, they have McCaffrey and Debo and Ayuk but we got Jacobs and Adams and Waller and Renfro. So let's just get a game manager in the middle of all those guys, and it'll be good enough. The one thing that they're missing in that formula is a great defense. If you're not going to have a quarterback that can win you games, you better have a really, really good defense that keeps you in every game. And the Raiders don't have that.
No, far from it. I mean, hopefully they stockpile on that side of the football and they figure it out. But yeah, far from anything close to what the Niners are defensively. 916-339-1140. Phone number 1-800-920-1140. Don't forget the website, SactownSports.com. Coming up, one of the biggest sports soap operas has come to an end, at least we think.
Cattles
and Ramie.
Sactown Sports. Live and local in the afternoon.
They always keep you on edge.
Cattles
and Ramie.
On Sactown Sports.
So last night, right, I'm in bed. I should say early this morning. And the wind starts whipping. The rain starts smashing against the glass of my bedroom windows. Dog freaks out. Dog jumps up on the bed, of course, and she's shaking like crazy. Hates any kind of storms.
Same with mine.
If she sees lightning, she's just done for like an hour. Freaking out. So Kelly gets up. It's about 3:45 in the morning. Kelly gets up. She says, I'm gonna get the treat for her, right? Because we got those treats that calm her down. You know what I'm talking about?
You're giving your dog edibles?
It's a dog, it's a pet thing.
Sure.
So she gives her the treat, but she ends up giving the treat to Sammy, like as Sammy's like, she's on my chest. And Sammy's looking at her, so she gives her the treat. And Sammy immediately just whips her head towards me, and now she's chewing the treat on top of me.
Oh, I thought you were going to say she headbutted you.
No, I've got treat falling and slobber falling all over my shirt. And you know me, the germaphobe. I'm like, oh my God, what are you doing? And
so it wasn't that calming.
I love my dog, and I kiss my dog, and my dog kisses me.
I don't do the kisses.
I don't do the germaphobe.
I love my dog to death, but I don't do the kisses.
So
kissing me.
Dog slobber and treat and like wet treat all over my like arm and chest, and I'm like, what is going?
Yeah,
it's 3:45 in the morning. One of my eyes is open. I'm like, what?
We both had very dad-like experiences. I don't compare being like having a pet and being a dad very often because people do it too often. But you had your furry little creature
drooling all over me,
drooling and leaving crumbs all over you. My dog was having stomach issues, so I was cleaning up his mess and taking him to go to the bathroom throughout the evening while those thunderstorms were going on.
So you and I got terrible sleep.
Yes, terrible sleep.
I'm sure a lot of people got terrible sleep.
My girlfriend got great sleep because I left the bed. I was like, no need for her to be getting up every time I get up, so I'm just going to go sleep on the couch and take care of the pooch.
I guess Kelly and I just, we feel like we should share in our pain.
Sure.
And our lack of sleep. Yeah. So just, take it as a team.
No, she got the whole bed to herself.
A team loss.
Quiet room because I have the TV on sometimes while I sleep. She got a great night of sleep.
Man, oh, man. I had to get up and take my shirt off. I got to put a new shirt on.
That's
I'm like,
an image I didn't need.
Oh, but yet you can say stuff.
Dripping wet, buck naked.
That's fine, though. That's fine.
I mean,
where's the line? That's okay.
Yeah.
Me saying I took my shirt off and put one on is too much, but you can tell me how you're soaking wet, butt naked.
I'm a sexy man.
Oh, God.
I've got hair that people would die to have.
We need to move on quickly. We need to move on quickly. Quickly.
Just saying.
Cattles and Ramie, Sactown Sports. So Carlos Correa, is
this over now?
Soap opera.
Is this done?
I don't know. I'm told he signed or at least he agreed. I don't know if the ink has been put on the paper, let alone dried yet.
I believe it's physical
pending, right? Yeah.
Where have I heard that before? A Carlos Correa deal could be done pending a physical. He has agreed to a 6-year, $200 million deal with the Minnesota Twins, going back to where he left.
Back to the Twin Cities.
Here was ESPN's Jeff Passan.
Carlos Correa, frankly, fell into the Minnesota Twins' lap. Now, he liked it in Minnesota, and the Twins really liked him. But the first time around in free agency, they were willing to give him 10 years, $285 million, while the Giants were at 13 years and $350 million. After that didn't work, the Mets were at 12 years and $315 million. And after that didn't work, well, the ankle injury that has been vexing him this entire time led him back to Minnesota. And the reason that the Twins were comfortable, frankly, is because of the shorter term of the deal. Mm-hmm. It's only 6 years guaranteed. Now, it's also got a 4-year vesting option that can take the total to $270 million. But again, it's not 12 years. It's not 13 years.
My favorite tweet of the day comes from Yankees Nerds. Carlos Correa has agreed to a combined 31 years and $865 million in contracts this offseason.
That's an incredible number when you think about it, man.
31 years, $865 million.
That's crazy. This whole thing has been crazy with Carlos Correa this offseason. And that he ends up back in Minnesota, of all places, after that seemed to have fallen apart to begin with, because they did make a good run at re-signing him, Nick. They made it clear that they wanted him back, and that those talks completely fell apart. And then you had the Giants mess, and then he ends up with, and then he goes and we thought ended up with the Mets, and now he circles all the way back around to the Twins for, as you heard Passon saying there, much smaller price tag and much shorter contract than what anybody thought he was going to get when he entered the free agent market this year. This has been a wild saga that may or may not be over. Like we said, physical pending still with Carlos Correa and the Twins.
And look, there's significant risk. There is significant risk with this signing for the Twins, even though it's 6 years. You're still paying this guy $200 million.
Mm-hmm.
He's still going to be on your roster for the next 6 years. You've got to hope that he can get through it. I said on the record last week, I thought he'd get nothing more than a 3-year deal. He gets a 6-year deal. And he also got a no-trade clause, Ramie, as part of this contract. So you can't get rid of him if you want to get rid of him if he doesn't want to leave. So there is risk. I'll also look at the Mets side of this. Man, Steve Cohen, I appreciate him wanting to spend money and go out there and pump his team and all that, but he sold it way too hard, way too soon. Seeing what happened with the Giants, and, Cohen's out there like, a victory lap running around. We got the guy we needed, and that's all we need. And I would not have said a word without that physical being done.
I don't know about you. I rarely trust rich people, Nick. Like really wealthy.
I mean, that feels like a generalization.
Really wealthy, rich people. I don't know. It's just, that's how I feel. And I'm sorry I feel that way, but that's just how I feel. A lot of people raised an eyebrow when the Giants backed out of it, and they're like, this feels like an owner who maybe got cold feet. And then Cohen signs Correa, and he catches a lot of heat and backlash from other owners around the sport. And then all of a sudden, the physical is a problem for the Mets too. And I read today in a couple of different places that Manny Machado being a free agent next offseason also factored into these discussions once they came back to the negotiating table with Carlos Correa and started talking about a rework deal after they found whatever they didn't like in the physical. I really, really hope that their concerns over what they saw in the physical are valid, because if this is them just playing games in contract negotiations,
I hope not.
and pulling the physical card, that leaves a mark on this guy for future negotiations. You know what I mean? Because it's only a 6-year deal. He's going to go back into the free agent market and probably be looking for one more big deal when you look at his age and where he's at in his career. And now this is a mark on Carlos Correa when he goes into any future negotiations. This better be valid and not just the Giants and the Mets playing games with this guy's future and backing out of a big contract for a multitude of reasons that teams might want to pull out of a big contract. But that really rubbed me the wrong way today when I saw Manny Machado being available next offseason might have factored into it. Did you want Carlos Correa or not? And did you back out of Carlos Correa because you had real concerns, or because you started rethinking the baseball picture and you had a good excuse with what the Giants supposedly found in a physical?
It's interesting you bring up Manny Machado, because Paul Hembo, who is one of the producers on Get Up, he actually tweeted out. He tweeted out a comparison between Correa and Manny Machado. It's crazy. So Correa ages 20 to 27 versus Machado ages 19 to 26. Really close, man. Slash line. They each hit 279 on base percentage of 358 for Correa, 335 for Machado, 483 OPS. I mean, the OPS plus, Correa 129, Machado 119, wins above replacement, Correa 39.5, and Machado 37.
Wow.
So they're pretty close as to
in the upper quartile of winners.
Thank
We're
you
in the top
for
quartile of that upper quartile.
Both of those
Absolutely.
guys. Both of those
Absolutely.
guys. Yeah.
So, it's interesting. We'll see what happens. We'll see what happens, but it has been an absolutely bananas offseason for Carlos Correa. And no idea. Trying to keep track. His third team this offseason that he's agreed to a contract with. That's got to be a record. I don't think I've ever seen this happen before. Where the same player agrees to a contract with 3 different teams
in the same offseason. That's pretty wild.
916-339-1140 is the text line. YouTube.com, Sactown Sports 1140. We get back to the Kings. What shocked us the most about the Kings' blowout win last night? We'll discuss it next.
Cattles and Ramie.
Sactown Sports.
That.
916. This is Sactown Sports. Sactown Sports.
Headlines.
He's back. That's right. Steph Curry is set to return for the Warriors tonight against the Suns in San Francisco. Curry, who had missed the last 11 games with a shoulder injury, is set to start for the Dubs. Shuffling over to the MLB, the Carlos Correa saga has come to an end allegedly. Correa won't sign with the Giants or the Mets, but rather with the Twins. The deal is reportedly worth $200 million over 6 years for Correa to return back to Minnesota. Also on the diamond, 12-year veteran Brandon Belt, who spent all his major league career in San Francisco, he'll leave the Bay and head to Canada as he signed a 1-year deal with the Blue Jays worth $9.3 million. Handing off to the NFL, the Baltimore Ravens agreed with their star linebacker Roquan Smith on a long-term deal today. According to the NFL Network, Smith agreed to a 5-year, $100 million extension. $45 million of that is fully guaranteed, and the deal includes $60 million in total guarantees. The deal makes Smith the highest-paid inside linebacker in the league. Those are your Sac Sports 1140 headlines. Coming up in 15 minutes, our insider, Jeff Howe, The Athletic, will join the fellas. Now more of the Cattles and Ramie Show.
One brings Macloff magic, while the other, we're still trying to figure that out.
Cattles and Ramie.
Sactown Sports.
Didn't I promise to Macloff Magic last night during the recap show?
Yes.
Did I deliver?
Yes.
Always. Always delivered.
Can you do that against a winning team?
Sure.
All right.
Yeah.
Let's save that one.
Next time.
All right.
I don't think I do one for like 2 weeks, but yeah, next time.
All right. So here's the thing, Ramie. Last night, the Kings win by 25. Convincing win. Cruised. Absolutely cruised. We said to start this show, a breath of fresh air, all these close games, the losses recently at home to teams that are under 500. It felt like you needed that win to kind of lift the sails a little, right?
An easy win.
Yes, an easy win. Not like, we just beat Orlando at the buzzer kind of win like last time when Fox had to hit a half-court shot.
Right.
This was a convincing, easy cruise kind of win last night at Golden One, which is precisely what you needed as a Kings fan. And even for us following this team, it felt good to see that last night from them. Now, if I told you yesterday that the Kings were going to win the game by 25, no matter who they were playing, if I said the Kings win a game by 25 points, would you not immediately believe that Domas and Fox went off?
Yeah, I'd assume they both had huge games. 25, 30 points.
Domas had his triple-double. Fox had at least 30.
Yeah.
That's why last night, fascinating to me, that you got 23 points combined from Fox and Domas. Those two guys scored a combined 23 points last night.
That's wild.
It's crazy. I would have never thought, could they beat Orlando with that happening? Sure, especially at home. Could they beat them by 25? I would have found that very hard to believe. And one of the good things about last night is because it was such an easy win and you really cruised in the fourth quarter, it allowed you to sit Domas and Fox and some of the other guys you've played a lot like HB and lower their minutes. Here was Coach Brown on that.
It's huge because those guys have been logging big minutes for us. And we put a lot on their shoulders on both sides of the floor, especially offensively. So to be able to have them play low minutes in a game like tonight and us still get the win pretty handedly, you welcome these types of games. It also gives other guys an opportunity to step up and play some important minutes during the flow of the game or during the meat of the game instead of just at the end.
The fact that they won that game so convincingly and handedly, as the coach said, with Domas and Fox scoring you a combined 23 points, aside from lowering the minutes, does that mean anything to you? Do you take anything from that last night?
It means a lot to me. And I'm not going to skip right past lowering the minutes, Nick. I think that's a big deal when you've been asking Domas and Fox to do as much as you've been asking those two guys to do. Last night on the recap show, I said that was one of the biggest positives to take away from that game last night was that you got a chance to give those guys a rest. And remember, Nick, I don't remember who it was, but the last time they had a pretty easy win, Mike Brown didn't do that. You and I both came in here the next day and were asking why Domas was playing so late into that game.
Yes.
Even though they had a big lead. He took advantage of it last night and gave both those guys a rest. And I thought that is a big deal and not something we should just skip right past. But two other things that I think make it a very positive sign, not a telltale sign, not anything that's definitive, but first of all, we've been talking about how much this bench has been struggling, and to get 54 points from your bench last night, I think is a really good sign for this basketball team that the depth is showing itself again, because when they were at their hottest, when they won, 10 of 12 games or 9 of 11 games earlier in the season, their bench was a top 5 scoring bench, and we haven't seen that version of it in a very, very long time for the Kings. And that goes back to the point of Domas and Fox having to carry so much of the load. But also, Nick, when this team was at its best, we kept talking about how good teams and special seasons, teams find ways to win. They find different ways to win,
right,
night in and night out. Because if you're just relying on a couple of guys, and all due respect to Domas and Fox, they should be in the All-Star game. Vote Kings. I hope you're not hurt by that. Vote Kings. But they're not superstars. You know what I mean? And so if you're relying on those guys to come out and get it done for you every single night, I think you're capped. You're limited in terms of how good a basketball team you can be. If you can find other ways to win, like we saw last night, I think that's a very good sign for the Kings as they try and take this thing to the next level.
It means something in it that you have to get wins when you can get wins, right? I think no matter who you're playing against, if you can get a W with Domas and Fox not having to give you a ton of production like they usually do and not having to play 38, 39 minutes, that kind of a win is always going to be important. And within the context of the season, that is going to mean something, because every win you can get without them being Fox and Domas is a great win. A great win. It's like winning a game with one of those two guys sitting. It's a great win. I would temper expectations, though, because we do have to look at who they were playing. And fair. I don't think you can move forward and say, oh, yeah, well, and I don't think anybody's doing this. I don't think anybody believes this team could win 40 games, 42 games with Domas and Fox not giving you more than 23 points combined. But I do think it was a...
You don't think Metu and Monk can carry you to glory?
No. I mean, God bless Chemezi, but no. You know, when you look at last night's game, you were able to do that because, A, the Magic are a terrible, terrible defensive team. They are ranked 25th in the NBA in defensive rating. And as I mentioned in the first hour, if you move the ball and you force them to make multiple efforts defensively, you're going to end up with a wide open shot, a layup, or a dunk. Like that's it. That's what it is, right? So I would first say defensively, you're playing against an inferior defensive team, which, you know, role players can beat up inferior defensive teams. They can't beat up necessarily top 10 to 15 defensive teams, but that kind of team, you can get that output from the other guys that you got, like Metu and others. Mm-hmm. That's the first thing. I would also say that, you know, when you look at it, you're not going to. Now, I'm going to take a gamble here. I'm going to take a gamble. I'm going to say that it's very unlikely that you shoot 50% from three moving forward this season when you shoot 46 threes. You could shoot 50% from three if you take 20 one night. Mm-hmm. But the fact, Ramie, that they shot 23 of 46 from three, that's the kind of anomaly of a shooting night that you can get, and that's what they got.
The shooting was off the charts last night.
Crazy.
But I think they were almost
HB couldn't miss.
They were almost due for one of those, Nick, because I think they're a better shooting team than what they've been here of late. You know what I mean? So there was some as we talked earlier in the season when they were red hot and specific guys were red hot. Kevin Huerter was shooting the three at a level that we both said is not sustainable earlier in the season. And we said there was some leveling of sea levels to come for Kevin Huerter and a few other guys. I think it goes back the other way. They've been shooting below their expectations here of late. And so I think last night was kind of a correction on the Kings and their shooting percentage. No, you're not going to get that every night. But if you shoot 40%, you're still winning that game pretty easily last night. You know what I mean?
Here's what I'll say, too, as far as if it means anything. It could mean something moving forward, right? Like, I don't think you're going to have that kind of performance very often when you can get away with what you got away with Domas and Fox doing. But what it could do is it could build the confidence of the other guys. You could argue that's how it means something, right? Metu got minutes, and they were very productive minutes. We'll talk more about him later on, but he had a good night. As I just mentioned, Harrison Barnes had an out-of-body experience last night. NBA players are great, right? They can go to any local YMCA and drop 150 on you if they want to. But what we saw, like, you don't see that from a lot of people in the NBA. Not many guys have a night like that.
No.
Where, like, Harrison knew it.
He was unconscious.
Everybody knew it. It was like he wasn't hesitating. It felt like if he was the number one option for this team, Ramie, if he was the number one guy,
just fine with that last night.
That's a 50 burger. That's a Devin Booker 50 burger or somebody else, a Tatum 50 burger, a Luka 50 burger. Like that's how hot he was. If he was the number one option and he took 20 shots last night, that dude would have dropped 50.
I don't think he missed a shot till the third quarter.
Insane. One of his first shots was like it was a messy possession, and he gets it,
and he just shut it up, and it went right through
in the corner, just kind of like a side sway three, and it went in. I'm like, oh, okay. And it continued to be that way. So this kind of win last night could mean something for the rest of the guys moving forward, because maybe it gives them a little bit of a confidence boost. Maybe they say, okay, we don't necessarily need Domas and Fox to go absolutely off. Do we need them to score more than a combined 23? Yeah, the vast majority of the time. But Metu got you really good minutes, and Monk, I thought, played a really good all-around game. He was active on the glass. I thought the whole team was active on the glass, by the way. Going against a big, long team like Orlando, the group rebounding last night was terrific. So, there are some things you could gain. My message would be, though, look, you're not going to win many games with that happening. Like, HB was crazy good, 23 or 46 from three. It was a perfect storm for the other guys to kind of help carry you to that easy win.
I mean, you graded on a curve of everything you just laid out when it comes to the Magic and what they bring to the table. But like I said, you find different ways to win on nights when Fox and Domas can't get it done. It's not always going to be as easy or as impressive as it was last night if you're facing a better team, but that's what good teams do. And that's how you look back at, just like we've been saying, you look back at the end of the season and losses like a few that they've had lately, you might go, oof, man, would like to have that one back when you look at the standings. You know what I mean? But wins like last night, you go, hey, we found a way to get that one. I think those are the types you look back at, and you're glad that you put that one in the win column despite not having your best players having their A game.
I would agree with you. Are the 49ers with Brock Purdy? Yes, I said with Brock Purdy, the NFC favorites. We'll get to that and more with Jeff Howe in 90 seconds.
Coming off a record-setting win over the Magic, Cattles and Ramie.
Cattles and Ramie.
Sactown Sports.
Jeff Howe is from The Athletic. He joins us each and every Tuesday during this NFL season to give us the latest. He is on the Folsom Lake Honda hotline. Folsom Lake Honda, your one-stop Honda shop. Jeff, as always, we appreciate you. Thanks for joining us. Are the 49ers the favorites in the NFC with Brock Purdy as QB1?
I think they are. I think right now going into the field here, the 49ers are my pick to get through the NFC. They're playing really well, and Purdy's playing really well. He deserves all the credit in the world. I can't imagine anybody like his parents included, could have anticipated that he was going to play this well before he made his debut when Garoppolo went down.
The team most people were touting as the favorites in the NFC and until recently, and Jeff, I've heard others echo your sentiment when it comes to the 49ers, but it was the Eagles. First of all, did you ever buy they were as good as the record said that they were? And secondly, what's not gone as well for the Eagles here the last few weeks that it seems fewer people believe in them?
I think it's just the injury to Hurts, and there's obviously the layoff element, and then, he came back a little bit. Now going into the bye, how are they going to look? This is a team that is very different from the one that made it to won the Super Bowl 5 years ago. So, they're largely unproven, and it's hard to predict how a team that hasn't really had a lot of success together is going to come out of a first-round bye and, playing a team that's feeling itself off of its own playoff win. So I think that's all it is, but they are really good. They absolutely are. I mean, their offensive system is incredibly dynamic. Hurts is playing out of his mind. They've got some outstanding skill position players. And their defense has gotten really overlooked because their offense is so good. So it's a very balanced team. I'm just curious how they're going to look coming off of the layoff.
This week, Jeff, and we're with Jeff Howe, Burt Breer mentioned the idea of Jimmy G going to the Raiders. And I know earlier, last week, Ross Tucker and others mentioned Brady possibly going to the Raiders. How would you peg the odds for who would be QB1 for the Raiders in 2023?
I would start with Tom Brady, and I think their backup plan is going to be Jimmy Garoppolo. And if all else fails, try to move up the board and get one of those top three quarterbacks, assuming they like at least a couple of them enough to make such an aggressive move. But, I mean, the whole Derek Carr thing, they telegraphed it. They're obviously moving on from him, which is fine. I think that's probably the right decision. And you can get some draft collateral in return for him. So that's going to be a worthwhile move. They're going to have about $60 million in cap space after moving on from Carr. That's going to give them all the ammunition they need to go after Brady, assuming he wants to keep playing. And I really think, we've talked about the Niners and their potential pursuit of Brady, but I think the way that Brock Purdy is playing, along with the investment of Trey Lance, you should be pretty happy with bringing those two guys into camp next year. You don't need to shell out for a big-time veteran contract like you would with Brady. So I just think the only potential competition would be if Sean Payton takes one of these openings and can lure Brady in with him. Otherwise, I really have to believe the Raiders are the big-time favorites. Now, if Brady wants to retire, or if he surprises everybody, or I should say surprises me and returns to Tampa, then you move on to Garoppolo, and I think that's a pretty solid upgrade as well.
While we're talking about decisions the Raiders have to make this offseason, Josh Jacobs says he wants to stay a Raider. Josh McDaniels said he wants to keep Josh Jacobs around. But that's what you'd expect both those guys to say with cameras and microphones in their face. Do you believe that feeling is mutual between those two parties and Josh Jacobs will be back in a Raiders uniform next year?
I think the franchise tag is a really worthwhile option because I think that gets them at about $10 million for the year. And when you look at the running back market, I wish I wrote about this a few weeks back. I think it's like that top tier of guys, like 6 to 8 players, make $12 million plus per year, somewhere in the range of 12 and 15. So if you're talking 10 million or 11 million, whatever it happens to be, that's still, it's kind of a bargain for the guy who led the league in yards this year. And then there's a huge drop off when you get below that $12 million tier. The next group of guys is in the like $6 to $7 to $8 million range. And, I think looking at Dave Ziegler and Josh McDaniels and kind of relating that to the Patriots philosophy, which is very much against giving running backs massive contracts, I think that's going to be a really fascinating story. But if it is, assuming I have the $10 million figure correct on the running back potential franchise tag, I think you have to go with that and then see if you can work out something long-term.
Jeff Howe's from The Athletic. He's on the Folsom Lake Honda hotline. Folsom Lake Honda, your one-stop Honda shop. Jeff, what happens with Aaron Rodgers this offseason?
Well, I really thought going into Sunday night that he was going to come back, but really watching his actions and listening to him speak, I'm not as sure about that. I think it's probably the Packers or nobody. I also thought it was interesting that he wanted to hear what the Packers wanted to do with him. If the Packers came to him and said, hey, we want to go with Jordan Love and trade you, how would you react to that? And he didn't look like he wanted to dismiss it. He didn't look like he was all in on that idea. So my gut tells me he goes back to Green Bay, but that's like, I don't know, 65%. Then I would say 25% retires, 10% plays elsewhere. Hopefully that adds up to 100.
It was close. If it wasn't, it was close, Jeff. The coaching carousel has started to spin. Does this all start with Sean Payton? Because it seems like already the teams that have openings have expressed interest in him. Is everybody going to see where Sean Payton lands before they make their hires?
I think so. And I think it'd be organizational malpractice to not at least see if Sean Payton is interested in interviewing with you if you have an opening. So Denver made that move. I think it's a three-headed monster, really. It's Sean Payton, Jim Harbaugh, and DeMeco Ryans. And then you can maybe throw Dan Quinn in there, too. Those are the four biggest names. And then, you look at Shane Steichen and Jonathan Gannon. There are some other guys who are going to get some really solid looks. We'll see if they're comfortable. I don't think there's any really great jobs right now. So I don't know how much Sean Payton is going to be really interested in taking any of these five openings. He told me back in, I think it was early November, he's not going to just take a job just to take a job. He has to feel like everybody is in harmony, from ownership to the GM and other high-ranking front office decision makers. He has to be aligned with their vision. He's not going anywhere dysfunctional, so you can take the Colts off the board. And I think Denver's an interesting one. I think, Denver might be the best opening, depending on how he feels about Russell Wilson. And I think watching Wilson the last couple of weeks without Nathaniel Hackett, he does seem salvageable. But my biggest concern there is when Greg Penner, the CEO, came out after firing Hackett and said the next coach will answer to me and not George Payton. And that just doesn't make any sense. That type of leadership structure doesn't often work. So how does Sean Payton feel about that? And then you look at, spin it forward. If he doesn't want any of these five jobs, I think the next three most appealing options are the Rams, if Sean McVay leaves, the Chargers, if, let's say, things don't work out with Staley, I don't know, a year from now or something like that. I'm higher on Staley than a lot of people, so I think he's probably going to be safe for a while. And then there's the Cowboys with his interest in, or his relationship with Jerry Jones. And I'm not going to rule out the Cowboys being eliminated early and Jerry Jones moving on from McCarthy. So that job could open up as early as, next week. I'm not predicting that's going to happen, but I certainly wouldn't rule it out.
Jeff, we appreciate your time as always, man. We'll have a lot to get to next week once we get the playoffs this weekend. Have a good rest of the weekend, my man.
Thanks a lot, guys. Have a good one.
All right, there goes Jeff Howe from The Athletic on the Folsom Lake Honda hotline. Folsom Lake Honda, your one-stop Honda shop. Yeah, I said it, I think it was late last week. I would not be surprised whatsoever if the Cowboys lose they lose early and, they turn around and they say enough is enough. We're going to move on from Mike McCarthy and we're going to go out and get Sean Payton because Jerry Jones has long wanted Sean Payton to be the head coach of his team. So I kind of see that coming together. And I know Jerry Jones gave the vote of confidence this week to Mike McCarthy, which means nothing to
me. That's for sure. He's coming back next.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Guarantee.
No
problem. Because when Jerry Jones.
Mike McCarthy's got nothing to worry about.
When he says it, you certainly want to believe it. 916-339-1140 is the text line. Check us out on YouTube, youtube.com, Sactown Sports 1140. Like us, give us a thumbs up. Very little effort from you. Helps us an awful lot to defeat that algorithm, get more eyeballs on the product, build the community. Again, it's youtube.com, Sactown Sports 1140. An NBA player is available, and I want the Kings to go get him. Find out who next.
Cattles and Ramie. Cattles and Ramie.
Sactown Sports.
Francisco. Curry, who missed the last 11 games with the shoulder injury, is set to start for the Dubs. On the court, which Steph Curry will be this evening, there's only one game going on currently. 76ers lead the Pistons 23-17 with 3 minutes left in the first quarter. Shuffling over to the MLB, the Carlos Correa saga has come to an end allegedly and won't be with the Giants or the Mets, but rather with the Minnesota Twins. As Correa inked a deal with the team today, the deal is reportedly worth $200 million over 6 years for Correa to return back to Minnesota. Now, former San Francisco Giant, 12-year veteran Brandon Belt, who spent his whole career in San Francisco, he signed a 1-year deal with the Blue Jays worth $9.3 million today. And then in the NFL, the Baltimore Ravens agreed with their star linebacker Roquan Smith on a long-term deal. According to the NFL Network, Smith agreed to a 5-year, $100 million extension, with $45 million of that being fully guaranteed. Those are your Sac Sports 1140 headlines. Coming up, more of the Cattles and Ramie Show.
Your afternoon home for Kings talk and more.
This is Cattles and Ramie
on Sactown Sports.
.431 on this Tuesday. Time check brought to you by West Coast Men's Acoustic Wave Therapy. So Michael Scotto, Ramie, of the USA Today reported that Cam Reddish of the Knicks is available for 2 second-round picks. 2 second-round picks.
That doesn't seem like a lot.
Cam Reddish.
That doesn't seem like much.
I read that and I said, oh my goodness.
Pick up the phone right now.
I am in. Would you be in or out?
Yeah, I think I'd be in. I think he's kind of what he hasn't lived up to the expectations that he had when he got to New York or that he had when he was coming out of college, but it's a very low risk, high reward type of 2 second-round picks, man. That's next to nothing. And if you can tap into what a lot of people thought was a really good, almost special player when he came into this league, he could be exactly, we've been talking about wing guys and wing depth for this basketball team for a minute. He could be exactly what they need, Nick, if he comes here and the old change of scenery does him some good and playing with a competitive basketball team and playing for Mike Brown. If you can unlock him for 2 second-round picks or even get close to unlocking him for 2 second-round picks, that could be a huge pickup for this team.
Yeah, I'm in. I'm so in.
I've heard you talk about Cam Reddish before. You've been a Cam Reddish
I was
guy.
a big fan of Cam Reddish when he was in college, and I know there have been some questions about his work ethic, his effort. Maybe he just hasn't clicked yet. He's a young dude.
Maybe he plays for the Knicks.
I think, that's part of it.
And they're
right?
the Knicks.
Like, you look at where he played, right? He played in Atlanta, and Atlanta, look, the Eastern Conference Finals run was a great story for them, and Trae Young bowing at MSG and all that stuff was a great run for them. But the Hawks are kind of a mess right now, trying to figure it out. Nate McMillan could be gone, so it's not like the Hawks are a flawless organization behind closed doors. And then he goes to the Knicks, and Tom Thibodeau, he's one of those guys, man, right? A certain player is going to play well for him, and he's very tough to play for, and he demands a lot. So somebody who might be having, some effort wanes, so to speak, pretty tough assignment to be left with Tibbs, because Tibbs is no joke, right? So, is it a case of the first 2 stops in his NBA career just, haven't been perfect for him, haven't been really good situations? He was also squeezed out in Atlanta because they had a number of guards and wings.
Right.
And so they just didn't have a lot of room for him. He wasn't playing a ton of minutes. And it seemed like, right when he got to New York, Tibbs didn't play him much at all. And there were questions about, like, why isn't Thibodeau playing him more than he is? And so change of scenery, all of those cliche things, you could absolutely put him out there. And for 2 second-round picks, like, you're not giving up much of anything. 2 second-round picks, that's nothing.
Yeah.
So if you get any kind of return on investment, this dude's a talented guy. He's super athletic, and he also fits a hole. We've talked about the lack of consistency at the wing position. If he could be, we've been talking about finding that 8th guy, right? You've got Monk, you've got Davion. You need an eighth guy, which I want to be a wing, and then you need a backup center legit, right? To back up Domas. Cam could be that guy. Reddish could be that guy to fill that eighth spot, that wing spot.
And sometimes having some of the expectations lifted off of you and some of the bright lights taken off of you can be just what a guy needs. Cam Reddish has been being asked to live up to those college expectations since he got into the league. I think as soon as he gets traded away from New York and he ends up here in Sacramento, where we know you don't get the attention that a New York does or the respect somehow, despite what that organization has been for a few decades, and you're asking him to be the eighth man, not to be one of your front five. You know what I mean? I think a lot of that could do some good for Cam Reddish of taking some of the pressure off and letting him just go out there and play his game and be a part of something that's pretty good here in Sacramento instead of leading some kind of rebuild and return to glory in New York like some folks had expected him to do.
Cattles and Ramie, Sactown Sports on this Tuesday. Speaking of the bench, we had the return of Chimezie Metu, Ramie, last night at small ball 5.
In a big way.
And we've been talking about him and how he kind of just vanished from the rotation. Not even kind of, he did. Last night, plays 14 minutes. He gives you 11, 9, and 2. Here was Coach Brown on Mezzi's night and kind of why he went away from Chimezie when he did.
Well, I thought he relaxed just a little bit for a couple of games there towards the end of his first stint as the backup. He started out playing great, bringing a lot of energy. And, you know, when I had a conversation with him, I just said, you know, you may play big minutes, but right now you're slotted roughly for 6 to 8 minutes to give Domas for rest. So every time you step on the floor, just leave it out there. As a backup center, you're faster than everybody that you're going to play against. You're more athletic than anybody you're going to play against, and you're extremely skilled. And so, you know, we just need you to keep the game simple, but bring your energy, your length, your athleticism, your versatility to the court. And that's all we're asking. And you know, he was good for us for a while, and I just thought he took his foot off the pedal a little bit.
Public to go out there and say he took his foot off the pedal, calling him for a lack of effort.
When he was saying, I didn't quite understand it. When he was saying he relaxed a little bit, was he saying he relaxed and that's why he came out and played the way he did last night? Or was he saying he eased up and relaxed when he had that backup center role and that's when his production dropped off?
Yeah, I mean, when he said he took his foot off the pedal, I think he's answering the question, why did you go away from him? Am I right, Chris? Is that how you?
Yeah, that's it.
Okay.
So, you know, they asked him, like, why'd you go away from Mezzi? And the end of that answer is what it was.
He eased up.
He eased up. He took his foot off the pedal. Look, I think Mezzi gave you some really good minutes last night. I do think, you know, you look at the matchup. It's interesting. If he can play against Orlando, he can play against a lot of teams because we talked about Orlando's size.
Mm-hmm.
But I also mentioned the first hour, Metu's athleticism. And Orlando, not the most athletically gifted team, especially when Bull's not out there. So, you know, I think it was good. I think, you know, it was the time. I don't know why you wouldn't play him. It's not like you're getting much of anything from the other guys who were the backup bigs.
Yeah.
At least he gives you energy and athleticism. Now, I don't think it's like his job to keep unless, you know, if he takes his foot off the pedal, as coach said, again,
right,
you've got to sit him.
Right.
But as long as he's with the program and he's giving you effort, energy, and that athleticism on the floor, I would not go away from Metu anytime soon.
That's what I was just going to say is obviously if he's taking his foot off the gas pedal, you can't have that guy out there. But when he's right, Nick, and we've seen Mike Brown not only go through everybody who he has as an option at backup center. He's gone through him twice now and has been very upfront in talking to reporters and saying, yeah, I'm trying everything I can basically to plug that hole at backup center. But when he is dialed into the game, I think he's the best option they have at backup center. And maybe not the answer. Obviously, I think they still need to go out and find somebody, #bring back Boogie. They still have to go out and find somebody, but
is that hashtag picking up steam?
Probably not. I don't think I've ever even tweeted it. I've only said it into microphones, but I'm going to make it happen. But when he's right and he's with the game, I think he's the best option they have, Nick. Like Mike Brown said there, he's more athletic. He's faster. Of the other guys that have played that backup center role, Which of those guys can you say does something better than the guy they're going up against almost every time they step on the court? They're faster, they're more athletic, they do this, they do that. I don't think you can. I don't think there is one in among the rest of the options that you could say that about.
I can't miss. They said what coming up?
Cattles
and Ramie.
Sactown Sports. What you're gonna get with an open mic. It's the good, bad, ugly, and funny from this past week in sports.
They said what?
On Cattles and Ramie.
A lot of good audio today. A lot of good audio. I want to tell you, though, first, that it is time to check out Coastside Medical Clinic, dedicated to providing breakthrough remedies for men. Let's start with the Detroit Lions, Ramie. Running back Jamal Williams had his post-game interview on NBC Sunday night, and this interview started very emotional.
You set the franchise record. You broke Barry Sanders' record. What does that mean to you?
My great-grandfather died on me. I'll just dedicate this to him. I'm just proud. I'm just grateful to do this for him. My grandfather, he was 92, but I'm just grateful for him to be in my life, and I'm grateful to be able to play football and do this for him. So there's a lot of memories, a lot of emotion happening right now, but I'm just grateful. I'm grateful to be able to play this game for my great-grandfather, and I'm glad that he's looking down on me, and I know I'm making him proud.
All right, so if you watched Hard Knocks before the season, Jamal Williams is a very emotional guy.
Yeah.
So I thought that was a great moment. Great moment, shouting out grandfather who passed away, and dedicating that moment to him. Thought it was a fantastic moment. But then Williams' emotions, showing you how emotional he is.
They swing in many different directions.
Yeah, then they took a turn.
You said this ball's for him?
Yeah, this is for him. Another thing, stop playing us, man.
Whoa.
We the Detroit Lions. We the Detroit Lions. Stop playing with us. I don't even watch TV, but I heard everybody already pick the Packers over us. Stop playing with us. That's all I got to say, man. Don't let these tears fool you. There's all dog around this mug. I'm good.
I'm good.
I love Jamal Williams.
It's like when the hard dude realizes he cried on national television. He was like, all right, now I got to swing this the other way.
I love Jamal Williams though, dude. And I love when you see good things for good people. And he's a good dude by all indications. He was one of the breakout stars on Hard Knocks because that came through. You know what I mean? He's genuine and he's real.
Can we just play the beginning of that again just to hear the swing of emotion?
You said this ball's for him?
Yeah, this is for him. Another thing, stop playing us, man. we the Detroit Lions. We the Detroit Lions. Stop playing.
He's like literally choking about it. He's like, yeah, this is for him, man. And another thing, don't be playing. Whoa. That was like, that was such a swing of emotion.
Don't think just because I'm crying that I'm a punk, all right? It's all real around Detroit.
This is real. We're real. This is real. Y'all picked the Packers. How dare you pick the Packers?
By the way, not everybody picked the Packers.
I mean, that was Joe Burrow. So we remind everybody, Joe Burrow back in college, and hey, how about that college national championship game last night? Woof. So going back to Joe Burrow's final year at LSU, he wins the national championship, and the cigar photo becomes like the meme of all time. And everybody's talking about, it's Joe Cool again, a la Joe Namath and all that stuff, right? And Burrow's got swag. Well, if you were wondering if anything has changed with Joe Burrow's swag meter, here's what he had to say to the media this week when he was asked about the Bengals taking advantage of the Super Bowl window that they have.
Window's my whole career, and everybody that we have in that locker room, all the coaches we have, things are going to change year to year, but our window's always open.
It doesn't matter who's coaching. It doesn't matter who's on this roster.
Swag on 10.
As long as I am on this roster, our Super Bowl window is wide open.
Love that. I love that. And if I'm a Bengals fan, that makes me feel very, very good about the next 10 years.
Dude's 26 years old. And, it's one of the major reasons why when you go back to his rookie season when he tore his ACL.
Yep.
One of the worst offensive lines in football that year. Took a ton of hits. He still stayed in games. He still fought. He's got that swag. And then last year, again, one of the worst offensive lines in football, he goes to the Super Bowl. This year, the offensive line was bad to start. The first 6-7 weeks, they were not good at all. They've improved as time has gone on. But I do think that plays a role. Look, it's not for everybody, right? Johnny Manziel had a lot of swag in the wrong way. But when you're a quarterback, when you have that swag, when you have that confidence level,
it matters, man.
It matters.
Yep. When you step into the huddle and guys sense that you have no doubt that this thing is getting done, that's contagious.
Yeah. When you can walk in, and it goes back. Look, I once did a radio show with Jermaine Wiggins. And if you don't know who Jermaine Wiggins is, he was a tight end of the Patriots Super Bowl winning team in 2001.
Yeah.
One of the best radio moments that I had, because I really got to take a look inside, was I did a show with Wiggy, and we went through the whole game-winning drive of that Super Bowl against the Rams when John Madden was saying they should take a knee and go to overtime, and Brady just kind of let him down the field for the Vinatieri game-winning field goal. that was a time when everybody loved Brady and the Patriots. Remember? Now everybody hates him, or most do. But, talking to Wiggy, that was his message, man. Like, the idea of Brady in that spot, he was so confident, so cool. There was no doubt in that huddle that they could win that game. Yep. And John Madden's up in the booth going, take a knee, go to overtime. The guys on the field in that huddle felt it through Brady. We're going to win this. We can go down the field and win this game with this much time. Yep. And that's what they did. Swag means something. Again, as long as you use it in the right way.
I think I got my swagger back.
Yeah. So, meanwhile, the Bengals, Joe Mixon, you didn't see this on Sunday. I told you about this in the morning call that we have. So, we went through last week this idea of there was a scenario where the Bengals could have actually been the 3rd seed, but not played at home. They could have actually, wild card round, they could have played in Baltimore. Very weird, right? So here's the thing. Mixon, it was going to be on a coin flip. They were going to decide, which is crazy to me. They were going to decide
where the game was going
to be played with a coin flip since he lost. Joe Mixon, obviously, he'll tell the story, but he got word of this. And on Sunday, let me explain the celebration. So Mixon scores a touchdown, and he takes his gloves off. He puts his gloves down on the field, and then you see that he's got a coin, like a quarter in his hand. And a couple of teammates surround him, and he flips it, and they all check to see what the coin landed on. I thought it was a genius touchdown celebration. Here was Mixon talking about it.
To be honest, like, somebody pointed it to my attention last night, and then I was just wondering, like, man, like, where the hell am I going to hide a coin in, like, wherever? And I was thinking in my shoe, but I'm like, nah, like, that's going to be too long. And someone's like, man, stick it on the side of your glove. So I ended up sticking it in the side of my glove, and it worked out great.
How good did it feel to be able to do that celebration?
I'm going to be honest, the best thing about that celebration was the actual flip. Like, that thing was just in the air, like, and it just landed. Did it come up heads or tails? I didn't even see where it landed. I just kicked it.
Chad Johnson tweeted something about you guys being dating coin flip selling. Did you guys see that ahead of time?
Nah, but somebody told me as soon as we did it, and it was like, and he'll pay for the fine. So I'm like, oh yeah, I'm hollering at Ocho after this for sure.
You get the fine paid for, he's going to do it. Again, I thought it was a fantastic celebration. Offensive lineman for the Denver Broncos, Quinn Miners. Was talking about the Chiefs. End of the season. Media's in front of him. And here he is going with his own agenda here against the Chiefs.
I said it before. I'm sick of losing to the Chiefs. That is like my number one goal that I'm looking at every day is I really want to beat them. I'm gonna say it because it's one on my chest. The fact that they did that little ring around a rosy play against the Raiders, like genuinely like pissed me off. And I'm just excited for that day and for that moment. And that's one of the things that I'm preparing for going into next year.
Why are people so bothered by fun? You know what I mean? Why are people so bothered by fun and genuinely? You know what should genuinely piss you off? What's his name again? I don't know this. The
No
man.
Fun League. Quinn Miners.
You know what should genuinely piss off Quinn Miners is that they were terrible this year. Is that the Denver Broncos?
Russell Wilson's play would make me.
Yeah, you couldn't move that, and at the root of it, that's probably what's going on here because the Chiefs can play ring around the rosy and move the football more effectively than the Broncos can just running basic football plays, just snapping the ball, lining up, snapping the ball, and running a play. You're mad at the wrong thing, bro. You're mad at the wrong thing right there. And I'm tired of people getting upset by how teams act when they're kicking someone's ass. Don't get your ass kicked if you don't like the way teams are acting when they're kicking your ass.
Yeah, get a job. Stop them. Stop them.
It's that simple.
Stop them and they won't be able to do the ring around the rosy thing. You know, strike the guy out and he won't be able to celebrate when he hits a home run.
People are so bothered by fun. This is a game. It's the nature of this thing that you do is fun. It's a game that you play. And I understand it's a violent game and it's played by men and there's a lot of money on the line, but it's a game and you're supposed to go out there and have fun. And we're supposed to have fun watching you do it, bro. Why are you so bothered by fun?
Manly men doing men things and shoulder pads and helmets.
No, we can't do this. It's an insult to the game.
It's the no fun.
Guys being dudes.
Broken
Guys being dudes. So there you have it. They said what on a Tuesday? Should the Kings start extension talks with Harrison Barnes right now? Our thoughts coming up next.
Cattles and Ramie.
Sactown Sports. Sacramento, KYMX HD2 Sacramento, the flagship station of your Sacramento Kings.
From the Power Business Technology Toshiba Studios.
This is Sactown Sports. Sactown Sports.
Headlines.
Steph Curry's back. He's set to return for the Warriors tonight as they take on the Suns in San Francisco. Curry, who missed the last 11 games with the shoulder injury, is set to start for the Dubs. Currently, we have 3 games going on at the moment. Right now, the 76ers have the Pistons in the rear naked choke. They're up by 49-29 with 4 minutes left in the second. The Heat lead the Thunder 29-22 after the first quarter, and the Hornets are over the Raptors by 30-28 with 2 minutes left in the first. Shuffling over to the MLB, the Carlos Correa saga has come to an end allegedly and won't be with the Giants or the Mets, but rather with the Minnesota Twins. As Correa inked a deal with the team today, the deal is reportedly worth $200 million over 6 years for Correa to return back to Minnesota. Now, former San Francisco Giant, 12-year veteran Brandon Belt, who has spent his whole career in San Francisco, he signed a 1-year deal with the Blue Jays worth $9.3 million today. And then in the NFL, the Baltimore Ravens agreed with their star linebacker Roquan Smith on a long-term deal. According to the NFL Network, Smith agreed to a 5-year, $100 million extension, with $45 million of that being fully guaranteed. Those are your Sac Sports 1140 headlines. It's 5 o'clock, which means it's more of the Cattles and Ramie Show. But stay tuned. It's coming up in 15 minutes. Mark Schlereth of the NFL on Fox will join the fellas.
With you 1 mile at a time during the afternoon drive. Cattles and Ramie.
Sactown Sports.
Yeah. We've been very quiet during breaks. It's like we're ignoring each other today.
I think we're both just tired. Both had a long night.
Yeah. I'm also like, honestly, I'm very distracted by this WWE stuff.
I'm saving the battery for when we have to talk into microphones. You know what I mean? I don't know how much I got in me today. Slept very little last night.
Full 3-hour show, man.
Did a half hour on the rowing machine today. Some yoga. Batteries on E. The battery's running low. I'm not going to lie. Final hour of the show. Going to give it all I got.
Great to know. Looking forward to the next 58 minutes with you. So last night, HB's tank was full all night long. My man, as I said earlier in the show, had an out-of-body experience. HB had 30 points in 30 minutes against the Magic last night. 30 points in 30 minutes. He shot 11 of 13 from the floor.
Yeah, he didn't miss till the third quarter. The man did not miss a shot till the third quarter.
6 of 7 from 3. And I mentioned, I think it was last hour, that if HB happened to be the number 1 option on this team, if he could take as many shots as he wants to take, last night, that was just begging for a 50 burger. You know, he had 30 points on 13 shots.
I feel like if they needed to play the whole game, like if that was close last night and Harrison Barnes
definitely would have got 40.
He would have had 40 easy.
He would have had 40. It would have been an easy 40.
Yeah.
And so if he was given the liberty to take like 25 shots last night, he's scoring 50.
Was there at any point in the offseason or leading up to the season where you would have thought you'd be saying Harrison Barnes could have had an easy 40 in that game? No, you never.
I didn't think I'd be talking about Barnes having the opportunity to have the 50 burger if he shot more. No, I did not see that coming. Here was HB last night.
Yeah, I mean, it's nice. I mean, obviously, you know, Domantas found me early for just, a few easy baskets. You know, guys were looking for me. You know, that was great. I think the biggest thing I was thinking, every time I made a shot, is we're out here just trading buckets, because I felt like they were coming back on the other end and scoring too. So, like I said, it was nice that we were finally able to get some stops and kind of really push that lead.
Yeah, you don't want to score a bunch of points if the team loses. You don't want to be trading buckets all night long. And I scored 30 in 30 minutes, but we lost by 30. That's not fun. Here was Chimezie Metu on his teammate.
Yeah, Harrison's been complaining about his power being out, but the way he played tonight, man, we might just have to keep it off. We might tell somebody to just keep his lights off. So, we'll see.
Just go live in a cave, Harrison. Don't ever have lights again. If you shoot like that, just live in the dark.
He was lights out last night, if you will.
No,
thank you.
Yeah. And so that happened. I think it was last week or 2 weeks ago. We talked about how it was tougher to trade Harrison Barnes now, right? Like if you go back 2 months ago, people were like, okay, just tell me what you could get for Harrison Barnes and a pick.
Yeah, we were just waiting for that move to be made.
What can you get for HB and Rashawn Holmes' money, right? All those conversations happen. Going back to last season, before the trading deadline, this offseason during the summertime. And there's no doubt he is tougher to trade now than he was then. My question to you, Ramie, if you're Monty McNair and you see what HB is doing and you see the production he's giving you and how efficient he's been, do you think about sitting down and talking extension with HB's representation right now?
It's crazy that we're even having this conversation. And I don't mean it's a crazy question to ask. I mean, it's crazy how far we've come.
Yes.
In the Harrison Barnes conversation, that this is a legitimate question that should be asked. And I've been wavering on this all day. I think you and I both had this thought almost simultaneously today when we were on our morning call and we were talking about Harrison Barnes and this place in the Kings. I'm a guy who hates watching one of my teams let a quality player walk away for nothing in free agency. You know what I mean? I'm always saying, get something for that guy. You're just going to let that guy walk away for nothing.
Get anything.
Get something, get anything, then let a quality asset go somewhere else for nothing in return. And like you said, I'd have a real hard time trading Harrison Barnes right now because of how important he's become to this Kings team. And I really hate to let him walk away for nothing. But I think those are the dice. I'm right in that sweet spot, if you will, of right in between. I can't trade him right now to get anything, but I also don't feel so good about Harrison Barnes that I'm ready to sit down and talk extension. I'm building and I know it's not something totally new. It's not starting from the ground floor. They have expectations this year of being competitive and getting a playoff spot, but you're building something and you want to invest in the 30-year-old guy who's having a great season in a contract year and make him a main piece of what you're building here. I just don't know that I can go that far, but at the same time, I can't trade him while I'm trying to accomplish something this year, and he's been such a big part of it. I think I just ride it out with Harrison Barnes, and if we can bring him back in the offseason at a reasonable price, okay. And if not, you just got to live with it.
You hit the nail on the head right there about reasonable price. He's Ramie, I'm Nick, Cattles and Ramie, Sactown Sports. Like when we had the conversation about how he's not necessarily untradeable, because that's crazy, right? I don't think anybody on this team would be seen as untouchable given, if you could get a top 10 player, for example. Nobody's untouchable. But when you look at HB, you don't want to just give him away. You need to feel like you get an upgrade in return. What are you getting back, right, if you decide to trade him? And I feel the same way about this extension where, like, what I would do is I'm not bending over backwards to give Barnes a contract extension, but I'm checking in. I'm gauging the number. I might talk to his agents and say, what are you thinking? Just to get an idea as to what he might ask for, because there's no, first of all, he's a really good fit. He's a guy who doesn't have any ego. He's a guy who can score the ball. I would like to see him be a little more active on the glass from time to time, but he's a total team player. He's willing to step up and defend some of the better players. He's not a great defender, but he will step up and take, he will take the responsibility of doing that. Ultimate team guy, seems like. Steady veteran. Perfect dude to kind of put Keegan under his wing. And on the floor, he's a really good fit because you're trying to stretch the floor. He's been great from three after his very slow start. And he's kind of the perfect, I've always said this about HB. He's the perfect like 3B/4. On some teams, maybe you can get away with him being the third option, but he knows his role and he understands it. So he's a great fit. But I would also say, like, here's what you have to figure out if you're Monty. If you don't sign him to an extension and he walks, are you going to get an upgrade? Are you going to be able to fill that void with somebody who is as good or better than HB?
But the opposite of that can be true, Nick, which is if you give him the extension now, are you passing up on the chance, the opportunity that you could upgrade with that that money that you spent on him this coming off season? You know what I mean? Can you get a guy who's a better fit for the timeline, who does some of the things that Harrison Barnes does, but is a better fit for the timeline of this basketball team and what you're building? And also, the other thing I worry about when it comes to Harrison Barnes, and you would like to think that this wouldn't be an issue, especially given everything that you just talked about with him being the veteran and the team guy and understanding his role and everything else. Part of this might be Harrison Barnes wanting to get that money. You know what I mean? Wanting to secure.
Yeah, it's a contract.
It's a contract here. We played the clip last hour of Mike Brown talking about Chimezie Metu and him relaxing, taking his foot off the gas the first time he got a chance at the backup center spot. I have some concern about if you give Harrison Barnes the contract extension right now, is he the guy with the fire under him that he's been to this point, knowing, all right, I've already secured the bag, things are good for the next few years?
But I could argue if you get him at a reasonable price, he might be more tradable moving forward than he is right now because he's locked in on a good deal. And maybe you can get a team that says, oh, he's the perfect fit for us. Like, just because you sign him to an extension doesn't mean that you're necessarily taking yourself out of trading him eventually. Like, if you're Monty, and like if Monty, here's where I would land on it. If I'm Monty and I feel pretty confident.
If I'm Monty, I want my extension first.
Well, obviously, that goes without saying. It was supposed to be early this year, Mark Stein, right? Come on, clock's ticking. Let's go. But like if I'm Monty, I'm looking at it saying, okay, am I going to trade Harrison Barnes? If I get through the trade deadline and Barnes is still on this team, then I'm absolutely entertaining the idea of signing him to a reasonable contract if I can get him on that reasonable number. Because again, you can eventually trade him. It's not like you're stuck with him for the rest of time.
Mm-hmm.
And at least you have somebody that you value, that produces, that is that steady veteran, and you have him on the roster at a good number. If you think you can walk into free agency with some money and maybe land an upgrade, the question is, how much is that upgrade going to cost you? So if you can get HB, who's good, and he's going to sign for, $18 million a year, he gives you a reasonable deal or something. Can you go out there and replace HB's production with that $18 million a year with somebody else? So I would entertain it. Again, if you're going to hold on to him, I think you keep him until the trade deadline. And if somebody calls you and knocks you over, you make the deal. If not, I would absolutely be open to talking to him about an extension, because if I have to pivot, I could always pivot. You're never just stuck.
Yeah, I'm just riding it out with him in all likelihood. I mean, like you said, an offer could knock your socks off, and I'm willing to part with HB if an offer knocks my socks off. But if not, I'll just ride it out, and maybe I can bring back HB in the offseason. Maybe I can do something better with that money.
Maybe. Mark Schlereth joins us in 90 seconds.
The only place you'll find De'Aaron Fox is Sactown Sports. Cattles and Ramie.
Cattles and Ramie.
Sactown Sports.
Working on getting Mark on the phone. Mark Schlereth set to join us. I do want to let all of you know we have a giveaway. We'll do that in a little bit. Also, time to check out Coastside Medical Clinic, dedicated to providing breakthrough remedies for men. Again, it's Coastside Medical Clinic, always helping us out here on the program. So you want to check them out if you would like. Have fun. So we have youtube.com, Sactown Sports 1140. Megadeth Knight says, ride with HB. Ride with HB. He's playing well enough. Just ride with him. Mike check.
You also don't want to rock the boat. You got some good chemistry going here.
True. All right, Mark Schlereth joins us right now. Of course, he's from the NFL on Fox, 104.3 The Fan in Denver. He joins us each and every Tuesday during the football season on the Folsom Lake Honda Hotline. Folsom Lake Honda, your one-stop Honda shop. Mark, I first wanted to start with Damar Hamlin. We didn't have the opportunity to speak with you last week. I just wanted to get your thoughts on the entire situation with Hamlin and how things ended up going.
Yeah, I thought it was, I thought ultimately it was incredible. And I know a lot of people got all upset about the time it took to cancel the game, but, that didn't really bother me. Like you go through all the protocols and, you have to get information. As new information comes to you make the appropriate decision. I thought the biggest thing was they made the right decision. So I thought that was good. I thought it was incredible to watch not only the NFL community, but the fans of the NFL community rally around that kid, just praying for that kid and pumping up his GoFundMe thing for his local charity, getting over $8 million donated. The whole thing was incredible. And the fact that he is out of the hospital now and there was seemed to be no neurological damage or anything. Like the whole situation was frightening, and it was scary to watch it play out, but obviously it turned out for the best, and it was incredible to just kind of watch the whole thing play out in front of our eyes.
And obviously the football of it all is secondary when you're talking about Damar Hamlin and a young man's life being on the line quite literally. But what did you think about the fallout and the way that the NFL has handled the seeding in the AFC? I know Zach Taylor of the Bengals, he expressed some frustration and disappointment that they're not sticking with what's in the rule book, which is seeding will be determined by win percentage should something like this come up.
Yeah, I looked at this as an extreme situation, and it requires flexibility. And one thing I think over the last couple of years is there's been a ton of flexibility. I mean, if you follow the rule book, in the game, you wait until the field clears and you play the game. If you want to follow the rule book, obviously you made a decision on the field. Both coaches made a decision that we weren't going to continue on. The NFL ended up postponing and then canceling the game. I just think, again, it's one of those things that, hey, it is what it is. We move on and we make decisions, and we try to make them as best as we can, as fairly as we can. And essentially then it's just about going out and playing and taking care of your business. So I don't have an issue with what the NFL decided to do or how they decided to go through it.
Mark Schlereth with us. Mark, are the Niners your NFC favorites right now?
Yes.
Why?
Yeah, they are. I just think they're the best team. I think one thing that's proved out is, hey, if Dak Prescott has a subpar game, Cowboys don't win. If Jalen Hurts has a subpar game or can't play, they don't win. If Tom Brady doesn't play outstanding football, Tampa Bay doesn't win. The Niners they don't rely on Brock Purdy like rolling to the promised land, even though he's been great. Don't get me wrong, he's been awesome. But they dominate you on the defensive side of the ball. They dominate you on both lines of scrimmage. They set up their run game, and they really do set up 5, 6, 7 explosives in the passing game that are really wide open opportunities to get the ball in good players' hands and let those players go make plays. So I just think they're built differently. They're truly built to me like a real NFL, like an old school NFL football team. And like I said, they're not reliant on their quarterback winning a game for them. Now he can't go out there and throw 3 picks
right.
But they don't give him the opportunity to throw 3 picks. It's funny. It was like Sean Payton said to me a year ago when when they went out and got Jameis Winston and decided to make Jameis Winston their starter. Remember, the year before, under Bruce Arians, he had 30 interceptions, 9 fumbles. So he had 39 total turnovers, 30 touchdowns. And, you know, there's a lot of fingerprints on success. There's a lot of dirty fingerprints on failure. And Sean just said, hey, listen, I won't allow him to throw picks. I won't allow him to throw. I'm not going to put him in that position to throw 30 picks. And at the end of the year, now he tore his ACL after about 7 or 8 games, but I think he had 14 or 15 touchdowns and 3 picks. You know, so it was like he was on pace for 30 touchdowns and 6 or 7 picks. So there's a lot to be said for coaching, and I think they put their quarterback in a great position to make plays, to complete a high percentage of his passes, and then not to put the ball in harm's way.
Do you see a clear-cut favorite in the AFC?
No, I think it's really close between the Bills, Cincinnati, and Kansas City. And I think, if I was a gambling man, I'd put my money on Kansas City because I just have that much faith and trust in Patrick Mahomes. Andy Reid is a coach. And I think what you saw week 18 was a team that all of a sudden dialed in and showed how dominant they can be early in that game. And, you know, I think the last month of the season, they were like a kid playing with his food or a cat toying with a half-dead mouse on the porch. It just was like, it was boring to them. And I think what you saw was a team that all of a sudden said, okay, it's about time, guys. We got to get honed in for, plus we're going to get a bye week. So let's go out here and let's, show the Raiders kind of who we are. And yeah, they gave them a couple courtesy touchdowns or whatever. But the bottom line is that was a pretty much a butt whipping. So I just think Kansas City would be, if I had to pick one, they'd be my favorite. But Cincinnati is the team I think nobody in the AFC really wants to play.
Last one for you, Mark, this week. And again, thanks for the time. Is Jim Harbaugh the next coach of the Denver Broncos?
That's a great question. Obviously I have no idea. It would seem as though he's been the first guy on their radar list or the first target they want. But I think my big concern is that he doesn't really want to leave Michigan. And, and I've talked to some people that know him, I guess as well as you can know Jim Harbaugh, that, said that he likes where he's at. Here's the thing I don't understand. Like, he's been there however many years he's been there, 8 years, 10 years, whatever it is. But he's about paid, he's not paid a commensurate rate with the top coaches in college football. He's making about half of what the Nick Sabans and the Jimbo Fishers and the, and this Dabo Sweeneys and, all those guys are making. And so there's a part of me that feels like the flirtation with the NFL even last year with Minnesota was more about, hey guys, would you just step up and pay me a commensurate rate with what, the top college football coaches in the nation are making. And Michigan doesn't seem to want to do that. Or at least I haven't heard them announce anything. So I think that's the number one target right now. That's what the scuttlebutt here in Denver is. But again, I don't have any real information on that.
Mark, we thank you. Have a good week. Have a great weekend. And we'll talk to you next week.
Sounds good, guys. Take care.
Thank you. There goes Mark Schlereth, of course, NFL on Fox 104.3. The Fan in Denver, and all guests come to you from the Folsom Lake Honda hotline. Folsom Lake Honda, your one-stop Honda shop. I found it interesting, Harbaugh released that statement a few days ago, but there were a couple of caveats in there. I expect, when you say I expect to do something, it's always kind of a, all right, are you fully committing? He left the door open to me in that statement to leave Michigan. And if it's a money play, it's a money play. I mean, to me, if I'm Michigan, I have no idea. And I know that TCU loss looks horrible after what happened last night.
Pete Carroll expected Russell Wilson to be
exactly. I expect, right?
I was just going to say, especially, any coach really, but especially college coaches, who's putting any weight in their promises or guarantees or even strong suggestions that they'll be back next year. I was surprised by what he said about the contract, though. Didn't Jim Harbaugh get like a mega deal? Is it just because so many coaches have gotten contracts since that he's gotten lapped in terms of the money that he's getting by other college football teams?
Remember, he got his salary cut in half because of the COVID situation. He was making big money, and then he had those losing couple of the seasons, and then the AD, I can't remember his last name's Emmanuel. I can't remember his first name. You know, all the hush hush about it was like, let's pull him back down. So he got his salary cut in half. He was making great money though.
They extended him. They extended him in February, and it was a 5-year, $36.7 million deal.
No, I was talking about when he first came to Michigan.
Right.
What JJ says explains
but
it.
What I'm talking about is like right now, though.
Yeah.
Because that's what Schlereth saw. He's saying like he doesn't get paid what the other guys get paid right now.
Right.
So he's trying to get the leverage, try to get Michigan to pay him more money. So he got an extension, a 5-year deal, $36.7 million. So what's that? That's about $7 million a year, right? So about $7 million a year. To give you an idea, Nick Saban signed an 8-year deal worth $93.6 million, which averages almost $12 million a year. So Harbaugh's around 7, Saban's around 12, and Harbaugh, like, hey, look, man, before I came here, Michigan was in rough shape.
They were.
And, you know, you're not going to get somebody who's going to get you guys to the college football playoff with any kind of regularity. So that's a very interesting thing. All right, we go back to the Kings. We also have a giveaway, but what would it cost the Kings to go after one of the trade market's biggest fish? We've got the intel coming up.
Coming off a record-setting win over the Magic,
There's 7 games on the NBA slate, but currently 3 are in action at the moment. The 76ers have the Pistons back pinned to the mat as they're up by 21, 74-53 with 8 minutes left in the third. The Heat have a 10-point lead over the Thunder with 3 minutes left in the second at 54-44. And across the border in Canada, Toronto leads the Hornets 65-59 with 1 minute and 55 seconds left before halftime. Shuffling over to the MLB, the Carlos Correa saga has come to an end allegedly. It won't be with the Giants or the Mets, but rather with the Minnesota Twins. As Correa inked a deal with the team today, the deal is reportedly worth $200 million over 6 years for Correa to return back to Minnesota. Now former San Francisco Giant, 12-year veteran Brandon Belt, who has spent his whole career in San Francisco, he signed a 1-year deal with the Blue Jays worth $9.3 million today. And then in the NFL, the Baltimore Ravens agreed with their star linebacker Roquan Smith on a long-term deal. According to the NFL Network, Smith agreed to a 5-year, $100 million extension, with $45 million of that being fully guaranteed. Those are your Sac Sports 1140 headlines. I'm Jay Johnson. There's 30 minutes left to the fellas. It's more of the Cattles and Ramie Show.
One brings Macloff magic, while the other, we're still trying to figure that out.
Cattles and Ramie.
Sactown Sports.
Want to make sure it's time to check out Coastside Medical Clinic, dedicated to providing breakthrough remedies for men. Ramie, we've spent time talking about John Collins of the Hawks and possibly being a target for the Kings.
Mm-hmm.
I love rumors.
I love rumors.
Good fit.
I do too.
He's what they need.
There was actually a report. I don't know if you call it a report, rumor, whatever, that the Kings were pretty deep in the talks. And I know Dave in the morning, Dave was talking about it right before draft time that, you know, they were having conversations.
Mm-hmm.
And the last that I read was that Collins was possible, but the Kings decided to just bring Herter in, and they were fine with that. They didn't want to go too above and beyond, right? So you wonder what's going on with Collins, because there's been all sorts of stories about Collins being available and all these issues happening in Atlanta. And it should be mentioned that just over 1 hour ago, the Hawks signed Derek Favors to a 10-day deal. Does this mean anything? I don't know. I know, you know, Clint Capella's been out, so I don't know if it means John Collins might be on the move, but it is interesting that they decided to sign Favors to this 10-day deal. As we talked about a week or two ago, Bob Myers on NBC Sports Bay Area, the GM of the Warriors, mentioned not a lot of people are going to be available here out of the Western Conference because it's so tight.
Right. Not a lot of sellers.
And his thought was, like, you might have to act sooner rather than later. And so the idea, at least in the ether, has been that, you know, some NBA deals might happen earlier than they usually do. How much earlier? We don't know. We're about a month away from the deadline. So Collins, he's definitely on the table. Does the Favors signing mean anything? We're not sure. But Thomas Darrow of Heavy.com spoke to an Eastern Conference executive. And here's what the Eastern Conference executive had to say about Collins and the likelihood that the Nets would be able to get a deal done, because that's one of the rumors out there that he might go to Brooklyn. Quote, "What you are seeing with Collins now is that the Hawks want him to be treated like an all-star. They want a big-time return. Not quite like the Rudy Gobert or Donovan Mitchell trades, but something in that neighborhood."
Let me ask you something. Has John Collins ever been an all-star?
I don't believe so.
So why would he be treated like an all-star? And by the way, how's that Rudy Gobert trade working out for the Minnesota Timberwolves? I know they've gotten things kind of back on track, but when they made that move, it was to put them in the upper crust of the Western Conference and in the discussion of being a legitimate contender after they took a big step in that direction last year.
I wasn't necessarily sold on the fit. It might end up working out, but I wasn't a big fan.
But it hasn't worked out the way that they thought it would work out in that trade. No. So what on earth, what in the world makes Atlanta think that John Collins would be treated like an all-star when he's never been an all-star, and that people would be willing to give up a Rudy Gobert type of ransom to get John Collins when Rudy Gobert hasn't even worked out the way that the team that traded for him thought it would.
Maybe they're looking at the Donovan Mitchell trade. They're saying, pay attention to that one, not the Gobert one.
I said this when
Mitchell's been pretty good.
Yeah, he's been pretty good. I said this when it happened, man. I really think that the Rudy Gobert trade kind of broke the trade market in the NBA. And you're right, Donovan Mitchell kind of makes it make sense a little bit more, but it really has thrown off the expectations of teams that are out there to be sellers. And I think, especially in hindsight now and looking at how the Minnesota Timberwolves move has worked out, it's made buyers take pause in terms of paying that type of price tag to go and get somebody. They're not going to find a trade partner. They're not going to find a dance partner if they think that's what they're getting for John Collins. I seriously doubt it.
Well, the money is a thing too, right? He makes this year $23.5 million. It goes up to $25.5 million next year, then $26.5 million in 24-25, and then he's got a player option in 25-26 at $26.5 million again. So the money is a thing. Look, I don't.
That seems crazy to me.
I don't look. You can ask for anything you want to ask for. I mean, the Hawks can ask for the moon. It doesn't mean that they're going to get the moon. And if you're an organization that's trying to get rid of somebody, you want to try to get as much as you can. So just because they're asking for it doesn't mean they're going to get it. And I'd find it hard to believe that anybody would be willing to give that up. I wonder if there's a leak situation here to pressure Atlanta into making a move and making them look like the bad guys. But yeah, there's no way I would trade that much for John Collins. Meanwhile, we had a little rookie on rookie crime last night there. Keegan versus Banchero. And Murray was 15, 3-3, shot 5 of 7 from the floor, 5 of 6 from 3-point land. And Ramie, I saw this from Alex Kramers, who works at Kings.com. He tweeted out, there have been 53 players that have attempted 100-plus threes since December 1st. No one in the entire NBA is shooting a higher percentage than Murray at 49.5%.
Best three-point shooter in the league since December 1st?
Yes, out of those who have attempted 100-plus threes.
Wow.
Best.
That's impressive.
So to that texter, it's not that bad that he's just a three-point shooter.
Might not be a bad idea if he's just shooting
big problem, Chris.
Big problem. So Keegan, ever since that lull he had, he has been fantastic shooting-wise. I still think, though, again, he's hot last night. He gets 7 shots. I just think it's going to be very tough for him to fully flourish.
Yeah,
in this system with their approach.
They talked about it on the NBC Sports broadcast last night of how different the situations and what those guys are being asked to do when you talk about Banchero and Keegan Murray. Banchero, they drafted him with the expectation that he's going to be sort of the face of that franchise and the number one guy when they get where they're trying to go, which they don't expect to be anytime soon. That's a slow rebuild that they're doing there in Orlando, and they probably think they're 2 or 3 years away. Keegan Murray is being asked to be a role player on a team that's trying to make the playoffs this year. Those are 2 totally different situations, and I know nobody is grading on that curve when Rookie of the Year votes come out, but I think that absolutely matters in evaluating those 2 guys in the big picture.
And again, we talked to Coach Jordy Fernandez last week, and I asked him about that because there's been games where Keegan gets off to a great start and then he gets like 2 shots in the second half.
Mm-hmm.
There was a game last week. I don't remember which one. They all blur together at this point. But, you know, Keegan took 2 shots after the first quarter. So, look, I think if a guy is hot, you get him the ball. But it seems like this system, other than Fox and Domas,
it's not designed.
It's not designed in that way
to force the shots to anybody.
You're not running plays for certain individuals.
Right.
So you might run a play every once in a while to get somebody going, but that's not what they do. So, and that's one of the things I talked about when we were discussing the Rookie of the Year in the offseason is like, well, you have to look at the context and the circumstances of the situation that each guy is in.
Yeah.
Paolo can take 20 shots if he wants to. He didn't do it last night. He was quiet for the first 2.5 quarters. Keegan doesn't have that, opportunity. And so it frustrates me sometimes. It does. Because Keegan, like last night, he's on fire. And I would like to see him get 10, 12, 15 shots.
But the thing is, he wasn't even the hottest guy on the court last night.
HB only got 13 shots.
That's true. He didn't need that many shots.
With how hot HB was last night, he had 13 shots.
I mean, nobody really needed a bunch of shots last night because they were falling at such a high clip.
No, that's true. We got a giveaway and top 3, bottom 3 next.
Cattles and Ramie.
Sactown Sports. Your afternoon home for Kings talk and more.
This is Cattles and Ramie
on Sactown Sports.
Just saw this from Nick Marianos from CBS 13. Some of the peak wind gusts last night in those overnight severe thunderstorms. Copperopolis, 72 mile per hour wind gusts.
What?
Sutter Creek, 65. Hudson, 63. Fairfield, 58. And at Sacramento International, 54 mile an hour wind gusts.
JJ said it this morning on the phone when I was talking to him. It's like we live in Florida. Like, you wake up and trees are sideways and torrential rainpour is coming down, and then it stops and it's like 60 degrees. The sun pokes out. And it's a beautiful day all of a sudden. I literally feel like I live in Florida.
I want to credit JJ for one of the funnier morning calls we've had. He was on a heater today. He was Dave Chappelle for a good 5 minutes, just ripping it. By the way, let's do this giveaway. 916-339-1140 is the text line. 916-339-1140.
What are we giving away?
Win a pair of tickets to the International Sportsman's Expo 2023. It's happening January 19th through the 22nd. That is next week at Cal Expo, the region's largest presentation of travel destinations, gear, and services. What is the word of the day?
Hunting.
Hunting. Text hunting into the text line 916-339-1140. One of you lucky listeners who texts hunting to 916-339-1140 wins the pair of tickets to the International Sportsman's Expo 2023. Again, happening next week, the 19th through the 22nd at the Cal Expo. Congratulations to the winner. All right, Ramie, go do some top three, bottom three.
Let's go. Where do you want to start?
Let's start at the bottom.
Start at the bottom?
Let's start at the bottom. Oh, you want to?
Okay.
Well, let's see. Why would you do that? You ask me where I want to start, and I give you the answer, and you go, really? Bottom?
Really? Bottom?
We'll start with the top.
If you say so.
Start at the top.
Really?
All right, let's start.
Top?
Oh, you want to start at the top? All right, let's start at the top. That sounds like a good idea.
You're the worst. Your phone down. What are you doing?
I mean, this is my computer today. You know this.
This is the worst excuse for him now.
Look, does that look like I'm texting somebody? These are the power rankings from the Athletic.
I see Jacksonville Jaguars.
These are the power rankings from the Athletic.
All right, let's start with the top three.
All right. Number 3?
Yes.
For me, number 3, and I know they're not in the top 3 in most power rankings. I don't know if they made yours, Nick. The San Francisco 49ers. How is a team that's won 10 straight not? Now, power rankings, as we've pointed out before, are how a team is playing now or in the last month or so is usually the sample size. They've been playing as well and are as hot as any team in the NFL going into the playoffs right now. So I got the 49ers at number 3, Brock Purdy, Jimmy G, Trey Lance. I don't care who the quarterback is. They're one of the best 3 teams in the NFL right now.
I agree with you. I've got them at 3. I would argue they're the top team in the NFC.
We might have a fight here.
No.
Really? Okay.
I mean, when you look at Philadelphia, Jalen Hurts, I mean, there's been some question about whether or not he's healthy. Sirianni came out and said that he was hurting on Sunday. They tried to backtrack earlier today or yesterday about that and said, he should be okay. But Hurts being dinged up, I think the Eagles are a different team when Hurts isn't 100%. They're certainly a different team when Hurts isn't playing. So I would put San Francisco at 3. Who's your number 2?
Number 2, I think we're going to end up with the same top. I thought that might be where we'd have a little bit of a fight. Number 2, I'm going with the Bills. And they just looked. We talked about it before the week with DeMar Hamlin's situation taking a turn for the better on Thursday, Friday last week. We thought they might get a little bit of an emotional lift, emotional boost from that situation after the gut punch that it was when it first happened. And they had that emotional start that thing off with a kick return. I think that's a team that's riding really high into the postseason. And I wavered. I waffled a little bit on who is going to be number 2 and number 1 here, but they are it's like 1A, 1B for me between them and the team I'm about to talk about.
I am not in love with their defense. I got Buffalo at 2 as well. Not in love with their defense. I think they're susceptible defensively. There are things that you can do. I think you can run against them. I think they have issues when it comes to play action and defending play action. And offensively, I'm very interested to see what happens if you limit Stephon Diggs. Gabe Davis is okay.
Mm-hmm.
He can make plays downfield. But if you limit Diggs, I think that makes Josh Allen very uncomfortable. So can the team do that in the postseason? We'll see. But I agree with you. Buffalo is number 2 on the top 3 right now and going into the playoffs.
The Chiefs, right?
Yeah.
Team in the league.
The Chiefs certainly feel like they're clicking on all cylinders. They've got home field advantage. You've got Mahomes, the greatest person walking on earth, according to Christopher Ladd. You've got Andy Reid.
I understand he's not only
times.
the leader in the clubhouse for the MVP, also the Nobel Prize.
Yes, I've heard that too.
Yeah.
He's working on it.
Yeah.
He's hopeful.
Right.
We'll see if he gets it done. Chris is going to lead the charge. He's going to be out there promoting this.
Category, Chris, what category could Patrick Mahomes win? Because they have science and literature and everything. What category does Patrick Mahomes fall under? Poetry? Is because what he does could be called poetry in motion.
I believe it'd be world peace.
World peace? That's also Yes.
Don't forget
Patrick Mahomes might achieve world peace.
Don't forget the Grammy and the Pulitzer too, Ramie.
World peace. The world is a better place when Patrick Mahomes is playing really good football.
I mean, I don't want to live in a world without Patrick Mahomes.
That's right.
I've also heard too, Nick, he's up for the Rhodes Scholar.
Really?
Really?
Wow. How about that?
He's doing a lot of things.
I get all the info from the Patrick Mahomes insider over here on the other side of the glass.
He's going to get the EGOT from what I understand.
By the way, Verlad texted us last night. He was at the Kings game.
Yes.
Are you 2-0 now?
2-1.
2-1. The Verlad voodoo. Do we like it? That's what he texted us. We got the Makloff
because
magic.
it could be a negative or a positive.
Right. We got the Makloff magic, which is supposedly always positive.
Always positive.
Cattle's curse, which is always negative.
Always
Trust
bad.
me.
Never a good thing.
Worst game of the year. I was there. Chris is the voodoo, Verlad voodoo.
What do
we
we
need
got?
one for JJ. We got to figure it out. I don't want to force anything right now.
The
Let's think
JJ
about it.
Juju.
Done.
Done.
That's
right.
It's
Okay.
decided.
So we don't have to think about it.
Okay.
The JJ Juju, the Verlad voodoo, Makloff magic, and the Cattle's curse. There we go. Print the T-shirts, baby. All right. Top three. We just did.
We
Bottom
just
three.
did. Kansas City is my. This was very hard for me. This was very, very hard for me.
A lot of bad teams in football.
A lot of bad teams in football, but I don't know how you end up with the worst record in football as my Chicago Bears did and don't end up in the bottom three. I know, Justin Fields put some lipstick on that pig. You know what I mean? But God, is that a pig that they got going there? And they just tore it all down. We'll see if they can put it back together, but they just tore it all down around Justin Fields there in Chicago this year. And it's just on the merits of the football team and what we saw on the field. They're one of the three worst teams in the NFL this year.
I'm going to go with the Colts at 3. They finished, if you were wondering, 1-7 under Jeff Saturday. So that didn't work out.
He's in the running for the job, though.
Yeah, I'm sure he is. I'm sure he is. I'd be running away from him if I were Jim Irsay. And they have no idea what they're doing at quarterback. So we'll see what happens. Number 2.
Again, I struggle with this, but number 2 for me, I'm going off dysfunction from here on out. And number 2 for me, I don't know if there's a more dysfunctional franchise than the Washington Commanders, right? I know the record isn't that bad, but just based on the outlook.
Ron Rivera is saying they're in a much better spot now for a quarterback.
I love Ron Rivera, and I feel terribly for him being in that city. I'd just walk away if I was Ron Rivera. You don't need this, man. You don't.
We're going to get to the bottom of your love for Ron Rivera.
Former Bear, but I also just think he's a good man. I think he's a good man, and I wouldn't deal with Dan Snyder on a day-to-day basis if I was Ron Rivera. Just the outlook of the franchise going into the offseason, I can't imagine there are many out there feeling worse about the future of their organization than Washington Commanders fans are feeling right now.
Oh, Texans fans might have an argument. Houston's my number 2. They're terrible. Win one for Lovey, guys. Woo, that worked out for you. They're forever messy. I got the Texans at 2. Who do you got at 1?
Number 1 for me is the Houston Texans. They have no idea what they're doing. 4 coaches in 4 years. They've given none of those coaches anything to work with. Like, I always say there's only 32 jobs when you're talking about a GM, when you're talking about a coach. You can't pass them up. If I'm any sort of viable head coaching candidate, I'm passing up on the Houston Texans job. I can't go there and know that my job might be on the line, even if you haven't put me in any sort of position to win or succeed.
You left me with no time, Academy Awards. I'm going to go with Chicago Bears to take a shot at you. Thanks to JJ.
Fair.
Thanks to Verlad. Great job as always. Ramie, well done, sir. We're
Thank
back
you.
tomorrow. We'll preview the Kings game coming up against the Rockets tomorrow night at Golden One and much more. Till then, Cattles and Ramie, Sactown Sports.
The moon, high jump the broom, like a preemie out the womb. My partner yelling too soon, don't do it. Reconsider, read some liquor.